It's time for the penultimate discussion, review and breakdown of Andor. We are delving into the Ghorman Massacre, as well as Mon Mothma's speech and everything else that comes between, including some things that you may have missed. So make sure you stay tuned for all of that and more here on Star Wars Chit-Chat. And with me this week on the penultimate episode, I have got with me a man who has come on many of my Star Wars discussion shows over the years. He's got his own podcast. He's got a lot of stuff going on at the moment. And we've got a massive collaboration coming up at the end of the month with the Forbidden Worlds Film Festival. I'm, of course, speaking about Spider Dan. Good sir, thank you so much for coming on. So I will want to talk to you about these 3 episodes, but I do very quickly want to ask, how have you found the Andor episodes leading up to this, and how did you find it compared to the previous season of Andor? Because you are an individual who likes Star Wars. You don't love it like as much as I do, and you've seen Clone Wars and a few bits and pieces, but generally you watch most of the live action stuff and you watch most of, I think, all the movies. So how do you feel about the Andor up to this point, compared especially to season 1?
Yeah, I think I think the show itself is, I wouldn't say it's slow, but I'd say it's deliberate. I think is the best way to describe it. It's meaningful and it takes its time and it lets you kind of bathe in this world, this form of storytelling. It is not your, space wizards flipping around and twiddling their lightsabers for 20 minutes. It's not about that. Again, Tony Gilroy's come in and he's like, I'm not a Star Wars fan. I just want to tell good stories. And I think we said that when we were talking about it the last time, and a couple of years ago now. It feels like yesterday, but it's been a couple of years. But yeah, it's very much like a wartime, it could be easily in a World War II setting or something like that.
Well, especially these episodes, with the French Revolution, and also
absolutely.
where the French resistance in World War II is also a big influence as well.
Yeah, again, a lot of the blue coloring makes me think of like France and stuff, and there's a lot of that kind of element. And Mon Mothma's outfit as well. I'm like, there's a vibe here. Again, I think you said it on the previous podcast. There's a bit of do you hear the people sing?
Definitely Les Mis,
which I sung on stage years ago at the Blackpool Grand Theatre. I had not seen Les Mis, but I was just asked to sing the song, so I did it. I don't think I even wore red, and one of the actors was like, "Why didn't you wear red?" I was like, "Red?" And they were like, "You've not done the research, Dan. You're a bad actor." And I was like, "I know," but this was last minute, and somebody wanted me to sing this thing. But yeah, I got Jack's kind of criticisms. I understood them when he was saying that it wasn't maybe firing on all cylinders, but I did enjoy those 3 episodes, and again, I think the following episodes have been solid as well. I think for me, it's about the dialogue and the characters more so than anything for me. Yeah. This is the absolute strength. So I kind of almost forgive it when the story or the plot is a bit lacking. When the performances are there, when the acting is there, when the dialogue is there, when the chemistry is there, it all is firing on all cylinders for me. Again, I do think this release schedule has hurt it a little bit.
Yeah.
Also, I think, unfortunately, because I think you said last year, I think the original plan was them to do several seasons of Andor leading up to the beginning of Rogue One. Tony Gilroy says, "Yeah, I'm not going to do that," which is, I can understand. I get it. That's a whole lifetime's worth of work to do. So they've broken the arcs into separate years, and I feel as much as that's interesting, I still like the 3 episode arcs. I still like that as a concept. I think we should see more of that in TV and what have you, in your serialized kind of streaming or TV content, whatever you want to describe it as. I think we do need more of that, but I feel a little bit that there's a disjointedness to each arc now because there is such a long period of time. Again, in the last year for me, has much changed? No, but in some ways I expect more things to have changed, or I think we'll talk about Wilmon in this arc because I was expecting big things from him, considering where we left him previously. And I was a bit underwhelmed in regards to his character and what he does in these episodes specifically. Because there was a bit of that Saw Gerrera scene was really interesting, really inciting, and was like, oh shit, what's he going to be like in the next arc? And it was kind of like, meh, gets a girlfriend.
And it seems like his voice is a bit deeper, and that's almost it. It's
like,
weird.
I'm a badass. I'm a badass. And they're like, where have you been?
Tell me
where you've been.
I'm still like women who, it seems to just be his personality trait is liking blonde-haired Aryan women, and that seems to be it. I don't know what, I don't mean to display him as character, but it's just like the main two things apart from
Horny
the Saw
young
Gerrera scene was literally the woman from the fields and then her, and I was like, and he's obsessed with that woman in this. And it's like, you spent like one night with her. I don't. Am I missing something?
Drina, wasn't it? Drina.
Yeah. It's one of those things where I'm loving Andor, obviously, and it is really good TV. But I'm trying to decide if I prefer season 1 or not, because it's weird. Because these are very clearly 3-episode arcs, but I feel like the arcs in Andor season 1 were more clearly defined.
Yes.
Like when I think of Andor, I go the introduction arc, which was all right. I think all 3 of these arcs have surpassed the introduction arc, but then I'm like the heist arc. I remember feeling it's gritty, and the colour was completely gone from all 3 of those episodes, except that finale where you see the kind of Aurora Borealis kind of thing, the eye, And then whenever I think of the prison arc, I know there was stuff going on in the background of the ISB. I think of white and orange. That's what I think of. And I remember thinking that like Kino 5 episodes, the arcs, there's more going on, but it is very much like we're in the prison. And then you get the announcement episode was, after, between the heist and the prison arc. And then you got the 2-part finale with Ferrix, with Marva, who is right behind me. I got a nice little Funko of her. Very new of her. I'm going to bring her to the forefront because I've been bringing this, I've been wanting this for a little while. Is B2 Emo and Marva. Speaking of B2 Emo, he's been completely bloody forgotten this whole season, which really upsets me. Don't know where, he's literally in the first arc and then he's not been in it at all. And I was one of those staunch believers. I was like, they're going to put his consciousness into K2. Nope. I was like,
I did like that theory though. I appreciated that theory. I was like, oh yeah, that would be cool. And then when it didn't happen, I was kind of, because I'd heard your theory, I was like, oh no, I prefer Mike's theory to what actually happened.
I've seen other people online also have that theory, but I thought it was one of those things where I thought the theory and then I saw other people thinking it and I was like, oh, this is one of those things where maybe I'd heard the rumor and not consciously processed it, or maybe it's just everyone thinks this so they're going to do it and they're like, no. And I'm like, but I thought that made K2 have a more of a connection with him. Maybe they're going to do the Millennium Falcon in Solo cheat, which is upload L337's consciousness to the Millennium Falcon and then the Falcon is kind of L3's and also maybe they're going to connect B2s. I don't know. I feel like the only way to make that work is if K2 fails in some way and then they need to extract B2 to put him in. But it feels like K2 is very much K2 in the one line of dialogue he had at the end of this. But, I feel like the issue I have is the Mon. I love Mon. She's my favourite part probably of all these. Is the Mon Mothma stuff for me has been the highlight of these. And I found that I liked the Mothma stuff in the first season, but I thought the characters around Cassian were the thing that I was really gravitating towards because each arc, he was around a specific group of people. But I found with this, it feels more, as you say, disjointed. Like this arc and the last arc, the Mon Mothma story is really the only thing. It's Mon Mothma story, the little bits of Saw Gerrera. He's not in the last arc very much at all. There's a Saw Gerrera little bits. There's the Mon bits, which I really like. But outside of that, these 2 arcs have really been Ghorman. The last arc has been the build up to Ghorman. And then this arc has been the explosion of it.
Yeah.
So in the previous episodes of these discussion shows, what I was doing was I was going, okay, what we'll do is across the whole 3 episodes, we'll talk about what Syril's doing. We'll talk about what Mon's doing. It's kind of the 4 things. Talk about Andor's doing. Talk about, But in this, I can't really do that. I know it's kind of a culmination of everyone sort of being in the same place.
Sure.
But it's so odd because although they're 3-episode arcs, the last one, it was Saw in the first 2, and then the third one was Mon. And in the background, it was the Ghorman stuff. And then in this one, the first 2 is the Ghorman stuff. And the third one is the aftermath, which I understand why that has happened. But I'm a little bit, I don't know. I feel like the 2 big arcs in Andor Season 1 have dwarfed these a little bit. And I feel like the Ghorman Massacre, incredible. Don't get me wrong.
Yeah.
The Mon speech was great.
But don't get us wrong. This is, for me, this is like top tier television. This is
100%.
Absolutely incredible. Again, this is me and yourself probably nitpicking really.
Yes.
And again, we had such a good time. Again, we're like, Andor, we're holding it up to, the heavens, like, look at that bit of Star Wars content, So again, I think this has been the strongest arc in this series, like 100%. And again, it's been building. I think I actually preferred the Mon stuff in the first season because, again, we're quite used to the kind of scoundrels and the space wizards, and we don't get to see people living and surviving and trying to do what they can within this very oppressive regime, and it being a woman as well, I think is fascinating. And again, I think there are shades of Padme in here and Amidala, and again, Mom was in episode 1 in a deleted scene.
She was a friend of Padme's, 100%.
Yeah, so so it makes sense. And then Bail Organa's in it as well in these episodes, which again is very interesting in its own right. But yeah, I still feel the disjointedness between these years. They don't feel quite as seamless. Again, this is probably due to Gilroy wants to do this in a condensed fashion. How do we do it? Let's squeeze it all together as best we can. Let's still hit all those notes. And again, am I really enjoy it? Yes. Is it perfect? No. Are there certain characters that do we necessarily need? Do we necessarily need certain scenes? Again, I know he's not a big Star Wars fanboy, so he's not going, oh, well, this has to happen here, and this has to do this, and this has to connect to this. But there is, like you said, there's connections to shows like Rebels and other stuff, which is necessary and is helpful and is good. And, we're still getting all the good Star Wars stuff, but it's in this very unique package. And I don't know if we'll ever get another Star Wars show quite like this, and maybe that's a good thing. Maybe we should have something very different. But yeah, I'm still not 100%. I'd like to see how the final arc goes, because I think that's going to be arguably the most important arc in this series. And again, the release schedule, I think it would have worked better if we could let these moments breathe and these characters breathe a little bit, because again, these episodes are not like, shooty, pew, pew. These are deep, big questions, big ideas being discussed by these characters, living these small lives, but yet having these big, grand, hopeful ideas. And again, I thought there was a really cool moment when, again, we've not had it in this show really, but they talk about the Force and they meet a Force healer.
Yeah.
I thought it was cool. And that little moment where she's like, oh, do I know you? Do I, there's something about you. And then she says he's a messenger. And I was like, oh, they're talking about the Death Star, and he's going to get the message. He's going to be the one to tell people. And when it explodes, that's when we can really start the rebellion. That's the message. But again, I've not seen Rebels, so I'm unaware of the Ghorman stuff. So I'm going in, and then when we, and I mean, we knew it was building towards something like this anyway throughout this arc. We know it's going to happen. The domino is going to fall. Very V for Vendetta. The domino is going to fall, and it's going to cause everything. But yeah, I didn't quite put those things together until he was there in that moment. But again, good TV, amazing TV, but not without 100%. Its flaws.
Yeah, it's. I think also, the part of it was like season 1 came out of nowhere and was a show no one was really expecting, and it really just smashed it out of the park. We never have Star Wars like this, and everyone has their own expectations, including myself. And I think it's one of the things that Jack mentioned in the first discussion was he didn't really want it to be each year you get like a couple of days, and I think that is what's happened as well, because with the Heist arc was a couple of days, don't get me wrong, but then the announcement and then the Narkina stuff was like a few days, maybe a week or two, but then in the prison, it was then a few weeks, I think, from what I understand, in that prison, and it took a little bit of time to kind of deal with that, but I don't know. It's weird. The season feels different, I think, but again, as you say, I think the 3 episodes, we've all kind of been saying the same thing. Yeah, it's great, we get more Star Wars, but Tony Gilroy didn't want it to release as 3 at a time. He wanted the 3 arcs, but he didn't want it to release in 4 weeks. But obviously what's happening is, we've got Thunderbolts and Fantastic Four, and then I think Ironheart's coming out, which there's been no press for whatsoever. That's coming out in June. And then I wouldn't be surprised if a surprise Marvel project comes out in later this year, because there seems to be a gap. There's Ironheart, there's I think some is it Power Man or Marvel Man or something? There's like a weird show.
Oh, Wonder Man.
Wonder Man.
Yeah.
And then there's also Marvel Zombies, which is part of the What If stuff. So that's
more animated. Yeah,
but it seems like there's a weird gap after Ironheart, which I think finishes in July, maybe early August. They have
announced the Punisher like special. Like
a one-off thing,
feature, one shot kind of thing.
Between that and Doomsday, which is coming out in like May, I don't think there's anything. I may be wrong, and I might be. I suppose they've now. I'm thinking about. I think they've the Maul animated series actually is now going to be coming out later this year, and Vision season 3. So maybe that's what they're kind of paving the way for. But I stand by my original comment, which is I think it should have been over 8 weeks and should be 2 episodes, the finale, 2 episodes, because I also think this Ghorman one, if after episode 2 we all had to wait for like a week to process it, we'd really have had time. But I've had to rush through these. I mean, we were recording on a Thursday. It comes out in the UK on a Wednesday. So it's like trying to watch 3 hours of TV in one night. I just about do it. But then I rewatch 2 of the episodes of Megan because she normally taps out after the first episode or 2 because she wants to go to bed. So I get to rewatch these, but I'm like, I don't get to really have time to process them, I think. And I think that's part of the issue. I mean, even Gilroy, when he was talking about it, he says, oh yeah, it's going to be a shame.
Even now, like when I was a kid, I used to stay up and watch like the WWE things that were on at 4 a.m.
Yeah.
And then I'd stay up, I'd watch the whole thing. It's like 3 hours or what have you. And I'd get up in the morning, I'd go to school and people are like, what happened in the Royal Rumble? What happened at WrestleMania? And I was like, can't remember. And I kind of feel a little bit like that now because I've really just because we need to, because we have to do it, binging it and going for it. And I feel like I'm going to miss out the finer details because we've had to do it in this way. However, I bloody loved it. But I think you're right.
Fantastic.
I think this arc specifically, because again, it's the 2 episodes, the tragedy happens, and then it's the aftermath of the tragedy. And I think you had those 2 episodes and you're like, that would be mind-blowing for people. And then, again, that final episode, and again, what that represents and what that's saying, not only about this, I've seen so many posts today about it being like, is this show about us? Is this about Trump and the real world? Yeah, it is. It's about visas. It's about, people, abusing power and authoritarian governments and what happens, and the propaganda and the manipulation of media and sensationalism. And this thing is organized. This has been planned, and it's not like, oh, it's just happened, and we can use it. They have made sure it occurs in this way as much as possible in order to do what they need to do.
A resource. It's literally just a special resource for the Death Star. That's it. That's literally it.
Is it an energy? I thought it was an energy source.
It's basic. The code is essentially, because Krennic is a leader of the energy program, as it's informally kind of known to a degree. It's kind of called slightly different things. It's first mentioned in like Bad Batch, which happens within the first year and a half after Order 66. Right. And we saw in Attack of the Clones, the Geonosians, Poggle the Lesser, he gave Dooku a little hologram thing of the Death Star. So the Geonosians already had the plans for it. At the end of Revenge of the Sith, which listeners go and check out the Revenge of the Sith commentary that me, Matt, and Dave did. In that, one of the last scenes, in the Lord of the Rings style, 5 endings, we see Vader, Tarkin, and Palpatine looking at a shell of the Death Star. It's already being built straight after Order 66. But basically, there's an idea of having it built, but then it's like, how do you power a weapon that's going to destroy a planet? It's borderline impossible. It happened in Legends once or twice, but in Star Wars, it happened so many thousands of years ago. It's a legend. Can it even be done? And so the idea of it is, how do you get a space station, something that's that big, that has a hyperdrive that can travel through hyperspace, that can sustain air and life, and also has enough things to be completely self-serving, while also having not just one laser to destroy a planet, numerous times without recharging anywhere. How do you do that? And that's kind of been the whole... There's a book on it called Rogue One Catalyst, which is all about the ins and outs of Galen Erso and Orson Krennic and stuff like that. It's a massive upkeep. And so Krennic is basically the head of this committee trying to work out, how do we solve the energy problem? And that's the Ghorman Calcite, I think it's called, is one part of this energy problem. And that's essentially what it all kind of is, which is interesting. And it's like, Dedra doesn't really understand the gravity of how much she's embroiled. She only knows a piece of the puzzle. Partagaz only knows a piece of the puzzle. Krennic knows the majority of the pieces of the puzzle. But it's really, you've got Palps and Vader, Tarkin and Krennic, and then Yularen, who got mentioned right at the end of episode 9.
Yeah.
They're pretty much the only people who really even know about it. And Thrawn barely knows about it. He finds out about the Death Star because he digs into it, and some of the funding for his TIE Defender, a special TIE fighter that would have destroyed the entire rebellion, to be honest with you, if it got made. All the funding for that got moved from his project to the Death Star. So there's only really like probably 5 to 10 people in the high up in the Empire that even know about the Death Star, and a lot of them had to dig to find it. But I do want to ask, before we delve into that sort of area of stuff, I do want to ask, so episode 7 rather, Messenger. So you already mentioned the Force Healer thing, so maybe that's a good way to start. Like, how did you find, the stuff with Cassian? Because, Cassian, Bix and Wilmon, they're on Yavin 4. Wilmon's very impatient and stuff, and then you get the Force Healer thing. So you could talk about Wilmon, you could talk about the Force Healer, whatever you want to start, and we'll kind of go from there.
I mean, I quite like the Force Healer thing, and I like that it was like, oh, she's a new agey healer, the Force isn't real, that whole line in the original Star Wars, like I trust a blaster over all this kind of fuddy-duddy weird stuff, faith and all that. So it was nice to see that it is there. It's not like, again, it's not flips and all this other sort of stuff, but it's kind of just a general kind of my dad does holistic medicine, so I know there is some benefit to it. So it's not it's not entirely without its positives, and however you feel about that and holistic remedies and what have you. But I like that there was somebody there, and again it spooked Cassian. I like that idea that he was like, I know you, I know the weight of the things you've done, I know you there's some meaning behind what you're doing and where you're going and what you're about to she doesn't explicitly say it's what you're about to see, but what you will see at some point. And again, I like that Bix is kind of more open to those. I have friends that are kind of like, they're into like crystals and things like that, and again, I'm not judgmental. If you want to believe in your crystals, you believe in your crystals, whatever, what's best for you, whatever makes you happy, go for it. But yeah, I kind of like that element, because again, it's been very harsh, very hard. We've seen Bix on drugs. We've seen, people struggling, and, Dedra and Syril in this very odd relationship. And it's a very bizarre kind of relationship they have, but also kind of, relatable in a way to some degree. But yeah, like everyone's trying to find their kind of like, a respite from this constant ongoing stress and strain, and just living in that world of Star Wars, and this is our respite from the real world problems that we have and stuff. This is entertaining and fun, and we can offload our problems onto poor Andor's shoulders. He can take them with us. But yeah, no, I thought it was a nice little element. Again, it was kind of a little spooky, a little bit weird, a little bit strange, but she had such a maternal kind of power to her, and this kind of wonderful kind of voice and calmness, and it's almost like it all, no matter what you've done and whatever comes of this, she knew it was going to end positively. And Andor almost doesn't want to believe that. He can't believe that. He's like, I don't believe everything I've done has been for the best or for the worst. It's just the things I've done, and that's what he says in the show. He goes, my thing is luck. I've been very lucky, and it's got me very far. But I think eventually I'm going to run out, and this is why I want to retire. I want to give it up. I want to put it to bed. I've done everything. I've done a lot, and he has done a lot. He's he has achieved those things that he was set out to achieve. But also, there's a little moment with Luthen as well, where he goes, "You've always been there. Like you've always been there when I need you." And that kind of was him going like, maybe the Force is, you might not be a Force user, or you might not be aware of it, but maybe the Force has pushed you towards these things, these moments, these alliances, these people. Maybe there's something out there that's having an effect on something. Again, a little bit kind of, in this very grounded, quote unquote, grounded Star Wars show. It was nice to have just a little bit of the kind of a flavor of the kind of more kind of heady, kind
mystical.
of mystical elements.
I think I've only just made this connection, so thank you again. Trying to have time to process a lot of what we've seen. So I'll talk about the Force Healer thing in a minute. There's quite a bit of lore about that. That's fun, but I've only just made the connection. Rogue One is a very grounded Star Wars show, but you've got Chirrut Imwe and Baze Malbus in there. Now, Baze Malbus is the guy with the big gun who's kind of lost his faith. Chirrut Imwe, played by Donnie Yen, best character in Rogue One in my opinion. He was phenomenal. He was like, oh my god, there's a Force monk. He's a guardian of the will, who's they're a really cool sect. They're in the High Republic a lot more, but they were basically they were Force sensitive, and they were monks, they were warriors, but they weren't like, I can Jedi move things with my mind. It's more, they felt a lot more in tune with the Force, very much closer to sort of monks and things. And so when you have Chirrut Imwe, and a lot of people go, you can't really do stuff. And then when he does that walk, and he's like, I'm one with the Force with me, and no one can shoot him. And all the shots of these elite death troopers are all just missing him, just so he can press that button to be one cog in that wheel to get the information from Scarif to the rebels that eventually leads to the destruction of the Death Star. Like, that's a mystical thing. You're like, whoa, and I feel like with the Force Healer and Cassian / Andor in this, it's almost a bit of that, which is like, she's not a Jedi. I think the idea in Star Wars is more so, if you're a Jedi, you're like ridiculously Force sensitive. You can do flips, you can throw your lightsaber and bring it back, you can do things with your mind and crazy stuff. And I think that a lot of beings are lesser Force sensitive. And I think that this Force Healer, she has a connection to the Force to some degree, a lot lesser than like a standard Jedi, but Force healing it's in Legends loads, and I think it's a bit of an overpowered thing. And then obviously it's got brought into the canon, in my opinion, at the wrong time, because you bring it in, you go, no one can use this. Okay, but Rey can all of a sudden. What? Where from? She just can. Okay, but so Qui-Gon couldn't be saved from this. No one who's ever been injured could be saved from this.
It's all right, Mike. She can hear all the Jedi talking to her, so she can do it. They can tell her how to do it.
It's frustrating, because I'm like...
That film is perfect, in my opinion, Mike. There is no problems with that film. No, it's not.
Rise of Skywalker. I enjoy Rise of Skywalker, and I'm going to force Dave and Matt to rewatch it because they've only seen it once. But it's a very flawed film, and it doesn't conclude enough. It actually opens more questions. This is meant to be the culmination of 40 years or whatever. This is meant to be the big finale of the trilogy, and you basically introduced loads of things which should have been introduced in The Force Awakens or even The Last Jedi, not in the last film. But anyway, I still am a defender.
That's a whole nother podcast for us, but Mike.
It's one of those things where, Grogu can use Force healing for some reason. Rey can use it, but no one else has in decades. And it's just quite bizarre. But there's a part in one of the Clone Wars arcs, which is the Mortis arc, where Anakin technically uses it to heal Ahsoka when she essentially dies on Mortis and then gets brought back with the sister and stuff. And there's also, he heals, I think, the sister at one point as well. So that's like a really weird Force planet-y, vision-y thing that's a bit up in the air. And then in the High Republic, which obviously is my favorite era, there are Force healers in that, but they're not ubiquitous. They're not everywhere. They get referenced, and there's people there's a guy called, his nickname is Buckets of Blood, and he's great. He's an amazing guy. He's a Chagrian, which is like Mas Almeda, so he's got blue tentacles that come down to sort of here. I can't remember his name. I have to look it up, but he's really fun. He loves younglings, and he's just like a really funny guy. And everyone's like, "Why do you call yourself Buckets of Blood?" And he's like, "Oh, I'm a medic on the front lines. I'm carrying buckets of blood." Like, but you shout your own name on the battlefield. Why are you so weird? And he's such a quirky character, but he's a Force healer, but he doesn't heal people, put his hands on them and heals them. He uses the Force to detect what the wound is, and then then be like, oh, he can just glance at someone or go, oh, no, they've got a broken this bone, broken that bone, without any medical equipment, so that on the battlefield he can help heal them a lot quicker using bandages or Bacta or whatever. So I love Buckets of Blood. He's great. But it's Force healing is something that I'm glad in the canon they hadn't used it for a while, but I'm like, if they used it at any point, they should have used it in Acolyte, because then you could basically kind of have one person use it, they get killed, and someone make a comment going, they were basically the last person to be able to use Force healing. It's a lost art, really. Basically, no one can do it. We've been struggling to find someone who can do it. You have to have a real, like psychometry with Cal Kestis in the Jedi games and Quinlan Vos in the Clone Wars. You touch something, you have that vision thing, and you can tell who the last person who touched it. You can't learn that. You just have it. And the way I'm understanding from what was mentioned in the High Republic is it's kind of like Force healing is kind of like that, which is like you've either got it or you haven't, in a way. So I like this non-Jedi person using it, and there being that skepticism and it being linked with homeopathy, and I like it kind of being that way. But I really liked when she said you're a messenger. I too, even me, I was like, I knew somewhat what was coming. But I was like, oh, he's the messenger. He's the one who helps get the message of the data from the Death Star to from Scarif up to the Rebel Alliance, which I think is true. But I think his whole role is the messenger. In Narkina 5, he's really the one who goes in and goes, "There's the Empire screwing you over," and then the time gets doubled, and he's like, "You're not going to get out. They won't let you out. They're going to keep increasing your time. You're going to be stuck in this prison forever." He hears that message from like the doctor guy in Narkina 5 along with Kino Loy, and that's when they lose faith. You know, he does that. He's part of the reason Aldhani survives. That was a message to the rest of the galaxy and the Empire. You look at all of his traits, he's always at the front line creating a ripple effect across the galaxy. So I think that framing of him being the messenger is like, he really is. You know, you get certain people like, I would almost say Obi-Wan's like the Guardian. You know, he protects people, he saves people, he's the one that really guides Luke, he helps Anakin when Anakin's good, lots of things like that. You know, Yoda's like the wisdom, he would be like the scroll in a way. And I think that if you categorize Andor as the messenger, you frame that in everything he's been in, and it really does work in a lot of ways. It's a line that is a lot deeper than I think even me, when I first watched it, actually really comprehends.
Yeah, I think so. Like, it's again, I think the show is deep, and it has, and like you and Jack were saying, there's moments in there where you can read it in so many different ways. You can 100%. Interpret it in so many different ways, and that's good writing. That is good performances. That's good characterization, good editing. You name it. Like, there's so many looks and moments and sighs and deep breaths and movements and shrugs. You know, you name it. It can say so much about each of these characters, and I love each and kind of every one of these characters in different ways. And I do think even Syril, you know, has his role to play. And if we're talking about ripple effects, I think Syril is like the ultimate ripple effect for this. And I think his ripple effect because it all started with Andor, started with Syril, and again, and there's, you know, we'll get to it a little bit later, but I think what happens to Syril in this will have a ripple effect to how Dedra is in this final arc. And how she handles what she's done and the ramifications of it and what she's had to sacrifice and what have you. I'm very interested to see how she plays out. I know a lot of people not really like Syril. He's not like a likable character. He's a bit annoying. He's a dweeb, whatever you want to call him, whatever word you want to use. You know, I've liked him. I think he brings a little bit of humor, a little lightness to the show. Again, it's not a laugh a minute show, is it? No. Exactly. So I think maybe some lightness. Again, the playfulness with his mother, even though I despise her, I think there is something. I know Jack isn't a fan, but I think maybe we do need at least a little bit of levity, even slight, you know, character based humor. But I think with this, you see the ripple effect from that very kind of first episode where he's chasing Cassian and Andor, and, you know, they're looking for Axis, and again, and they come together, the ripple effect as they come together, and again, they're causing more ripple effects, and Andor's again here in this situation, and again, he's looking for Dedra, because Wilmon is like, you know, let's kill her. She's here, she's there, she's on Ghorman. She's just standing there, he literally says she's waiting to be killed.
Which is a brutal line, isn't it?
Yeah. And that's it. And this whole thing is brutal. And like every moment is brutal. Even and I think what the show again does really well is absolutely knows how to build tension and give you those moments. Because I had chills, I was on tenterhooks, I was like, this is going to be horrific. This is going to be awful. And I know it's coming. And again, it's been building. You know, I don't need to know all the Star Wars lore or the other episodes to know this is not going to end well. This is Andor. Again, like you said, with the end of the previous arc. And again, you and Dave spotted it. I spotted it a mile away when she's like, "Oh yeah, we're happy again. We're together. Let's sleep together." I was like, "You're dead." Immediately, you were dead.
Yeah,
No, like I literally said it out loud. I went, "Well, you're dead, aren't you?" Kind of thing. I live alone. Nobody else is here. But I went, "You're dead. You are dying." And she did. But again, ADHD is good for pattern recognition, so it's probably one of those as well. But there you have it. But yeah, I think this arc does build to that crescendo. Again, there is a kind of a separate build with the final episode, but there's still a payoff. My one critique as well for the final episode, skipping right to the end of that, they get out of the Senate, and is it? I want to say it's Kleya. Is it Kleya, the radio woman?
Yeah, well, the one who's with Luthen. Yeah,
Kleya. The one with Luthen. Yeah,
shout out because that's Jack's favorite character, I think, in Andor.
She's great, but there was a moment where she's like, "Oh wow, I can't believe you got out, and you must be tired." I felt that was really disingenuous. I didn't think them getting out was all that difficult, but I think there were those two characters who locked the door. I feel were there for a purpose. The way they looked at each other after, again, this is me reading it, but the way they were like, this door's been open for months, and they're like, "Yeah, I fixed it. Don't worry, I fixed it." And they're trying to end the transmission, and they kind of just slyly look at each other.
I've got that written down. I think they're agents. I think there's a lot of people in the rebellion who work under the Empire, because how else does Luthen know the Empire's movements? It's like, we're just technicians. We've never done anything wrong. And then, we just happened to fix you can't write someone up for fixing a door at the exact right time and doing exactly what Imperial protocol is. And that's what you see it in Rebels quite a bit, which is what the Rebel cells and eventually the Rebel Alliance learn is the Empire, because it's tightening its grip so much, is so strict on protocol, you can actually abuse that protocol to your own advantage if you've got someone who's in the system for long enough. So you can genuinely have it. So you've got like sleeper agents who are like in the ISB, like Lonnie and people like that, who are like, they're in there so deep that no one suspects them. And if they adhere to the exact protocols in the exact, like inopportune time, just to kind of be a dick to their fellows, but you can't get in trouble for that. That's how you'd kind of get you do it. So I agree. I spotted that too.
But you've just picked a wonderful moment of that is Bail Organa as well. He's doing the exact same thing. He literally goes, "This paragraph, subsection B, at this moment, and since everybody else has described this as an emergency event, we can now have someone take the floor in this emergency event and comment on it."
And you can't stop them. No one can. And the only way they do is shutting the power off.
Exactly. But that's exactly. And I saw a really good post. I've not looked much online about other people's kind of opinions on it, but I did see a post when I wasn't even trying to look for anything. And they said, the rebellion is not just guys with blasters and ships. It is these little tiny roles. It's the hotel office. It's the hotel clerk at the desk.
I loved him. Yeah.
It's these people who lock the door. These kind of technicians. It's those little acts of rebellion that Andor kind of showcases. That it's not just, again, these big massive swings and grenades and load
up the Death Star.
Rifles. Yeah, exactly. It's the entire. And again, they talk about it when they're on. Are they on Yavin? Is Bix and
they're living in the forest place they're living on. That's Yavin 4. Yeah.
I got a bit confused there because when he comes back, they said, "Oh, Mon Mothma somebody else is gonna take her to Yavin." So I was like, "Is that a different Yavin? Is that Yavin 1, 2, or 3?"
No,
I don't know.
It is Yavin 4. They just call it Yavin. Just
right, because when they arrive, when he comes back with the droid, that's when they say, and I'm like, "But they're on Yavin. Sure, why would he say that another people are going to take her to Yavin when they're already on Yavin?" I'm pretty sure he said. So that confused me.
Are you talking about when they're in the safe house? Or are you?
No. So towards when Mon Mothma comes out of the Senate, and they say, Andor lands with the droid on his own, pretty much. I think maybe with Wilmon and Drina and the rest. Mon Mothma's not with them.
Yep.
And the guy who's like, "You shouldn't be going away on your own missions." Yeah. He goes, "Oh, don't worry, Mon Mothma's going to be taken by Gold Team," I think he said.
Yeah, I think he might have said like bringing him to Yavin. I think he may have said bringing to Yavin as opposed to taking to Yavin. That might be it.
Okay. Yeah, maybe I misheard or something. Again, I watched 3 episodes back to back. I might have missed things.
It's nearly 3 hours of content, to be fair, and there's a lot that goes on here.
Yeah, because where they are looks like Yavin. I was like, the base looks like Yavin. It must be Yavin. But then when that line said, I was like, is it another Yavin? Is it a different planet?
No, technically speaking, in Star Wars, there are other Yavins, but no, Yavin 4 is the place the Rebel base is, essentially. Yeah, I mean, we're building to the Ghorman Massacre, but I want to say with the first episode, Messenger, so we spoke about the actual name of the episode, and we also spoke about Cassian and stuff, and Mon, she's in it a bit in that first episode, but it's really about, you've got the Ghorman tensions rising, you've got them saying that there's no substitute for the G-Silk or the cow kite and things, and then Dedra knows, Syril doesn't, and all that kind of building and stuff, and then that goes into the next episode, Who Are You, very, very well. But I want to ask you, before we delve into this, with Wilmon. So this will, because this leads a little bit into the Ghorman Massacre, but we still won't quite get there yet. But because you mentioned, it was either at the start of this or off air, about Wilmon. So I wonder if you could tell us just a little bit about how you felt about Wilmon with the Saw Gerrera stuff, and then in these ones, and even to the end, you can go through this whole thing, because I wasn't even going to mention Wilmon, so I thought, well, if you're interested by him, you can.
I'm not interested by it. I was interested coming out of the previous episode because it was like, oh, he's going to be a real radical. He's going to be a Saw Gerrera. He's going to really maybe challenge Andor. He's going to be maybe like, really push that agenda as far as it can possibly go.
Yeah, because he's so radicalized by Saw.
Yeah, and he's fucking breathing in the rhydonium, and he's like, it's burning my lungs. You're like, he wouldn't do that if he didn't believe in what Saw was saying and take the mask off, because I'm not doing that. I'm it didn't convince me. I'm not doing that. But all of a sudden he was like, and so I was like, okay, right. So he is fully like radicalized now, right? I'm in, because that scene was cool. That scene was good. I like it. Love the speech. And then this episode, it was like, again, a year has passed. I don't know what he's done in this year, but he comes in with this like fucking cocky attitude, and they're like, why haven't you checked in? Why haven't you checked in? You should check in. You should check in. No, I want to kill Dedra, and we're going to kill her. We're going to kill her. Killed my dad, this, that. And they say, Ferric, Stone and Sky. And this is that bond. This is, it keeps them together. And he kind of becomes kind of a surrogate father for him. And I get that, but I was kind of expecting like a different, an evolution to his character, and it really wasn't. It was just like, he's still the same kid, but he thinks he's an hard man. That's all. That's it. And then in the next episode, it's kind of the same thing. He gets another girlfriend, and he's in with the Ghorman rebels, the Ghorman Front, whatever they're called. And then again, Andor has he's like, please do this, please come with me, please kill her. Gives him the sniper rifle, goes into the hotel. I'll be honest, he's assembling that sniper rifle at the window. I was like, maybe be a bit more, Mr. Spy.
I was thinking that. I was like, is he to get found out? Like, I know, obviously, we all know Andor survives till Rogue One, but I was like, there's a lot of stuff that can happen to him before then. And is he going to try and take out Dedra, and then he gets arrested, and then in the Ghorman Massacre, would he get out? But no, it was like, you're being pretty, you can see them.
Draw the blinds, man. There must be, like, or
there are
blinds.
I think they mention it in like one of the other episodes. He literally mentioned there being, you can turn the shutters or, make them like go tinted
go dark or something. Yeah, something. I was just like, that's odd.
But Wilmon is, I feel, I don't know, again, there's people who have seen all the episodes of Andor. I'm not one of those. I haven't seen leaks. I avoid all that jazz, and I've not tried to break down trailers and stuff because I'm not into that. I know that, obviously K2SO is going to be a more major player in the next 3 episodes, and it's going to lead into Rogue One a lot more. But I suspect, I'm hoping we get next episode's a big Saw Gerrera thing, because I think that last episode when Saw was on screen, Forrest Whitaker stole the show, and I'm like, I want more Saw Gerrera. I love Saw. He's in 4 Rebels episodes. They're amazing. They're really interesting. They do toe that line of like, how far do we go? Again, Rebels did a lot of the stuff that Andor was doing before Andor. So Saw's in 4 episodes of Rebels. Mothma's in like 5 episodes. And I'm like, whenever Saw pops up, he always tests the people. He's in Jedi Fallen Order, and he's like on Kashyyyk fighting in the front line trying to save the Wookiees. And then him and Cal at one point, I think, have a little... Cal does like him a lot, but at one point Saw kind of wants to go a bit too far, and Cal has to pull back a bit because Saw pushes everyone to be an extremist and radicalizes them. And it's like, do they fall in? Do they pull back? And it feels like Wilmon is going into that. So I'm like, I don't recall Wilmon being in Rogue One. So I'm like, assumedly he dies in the next, I think that's what his arc is going to be. He's going to die in the next few episodes. And I'm like, I want the next 3 to be very Saw Gerrera heavy. And I want Saw to, because there's mentions in Rogue One that Saw, he bombs like civilians and stuff to kill Imperials. He goes pretty horrible places. And I want Wilmon to be there. And I'm like, again, when I saw him in this, I was like, oh, are we going to get more Saw? And then, no, Saw's just not in any of these. And I'm like,
disappointed.
Yeah, I want more Saw. That's my hope for the finale. I'm like, more Saw, K2SO and Saw.
Yeah, I'm going to say I want more Luthen. If this is the last we get of Luthen,
I think he's gonna. I think him and Saw. I'm hoping to work together, and Luthen's going to do a big sacrifice. That's what I assume is going to happen. Because Luthen, in almost every collection of episodes he's been in this season, he's mentioned, I'm either going to die or I'm ready to die.
Yeah.
And so it's like, well, you're not in Rogue One and you're a major player in the rebellion, so you obviously you have to die, surely.
Yeah. It wasn't somebody I wanted to bring up necessarily, but again, it was one of the weaker elements of this, because again, they set it up so strongly, and that's why I was like, okay, I mean, and I liked his storyline in the previous arc. I like the idea that he's, he has to stay there and Saw's watching him and has to work out how to do all these and he's teaching that guy. And again, that was interesting. And the fact that he can't leave, he's like, no, I'm supposed to leave. And they're like, you're not going anywhere. I like that. No, that's not the plan. That's not what we agreed. And yeah, that was interesting. That whole
the power shift, because Saw has the power. That's the thing is, the rebellion, Saw has a huge amount of the power. Not in the Rebel Alliance, but you go on Saw's ground, he will kill you, and the rebel leaders are not going to fight him on it. They're just going to be like, we shouldn't associate with him because he's crazy. And that's what they get to in Rogue One. They go, we don't want to. That's why they don't really trust Jyn Erso initially, because they're like, you're associate with Saw. We don't want anything to do with you. He's nuts. He kills civilians. We don't want that in our Rebel Alliance. But they're not like, let's go kill Saw Gerrera, because he's slightly less bad than the Empire. So they're like, what do we do? So yeah, I want more Saw, because that political maneuvering. What I want is, because it gets touched upon again in Star Wars Rebels. Saw is in Star Wars Rebels from this point, and there's a scene where Mon's already on Yavin 4, and Saw sends a message to Yavin 4 and calls her out and says, you are holding the rebellion back. You are not pushing fast enough. We need to strike and do these things. And she's like, no, we can't. We can't do that. And the Ghost Crew, the main characters in Rebels, they go off to help Saw at one point. And they're like, well, we should probably go help. I think Ezra's kind of more foolhardy. He's one of the characters a bit more like, I'll go and do this. And then they go, and then obviously it's like, okay, yeah, Saw is pushing a bit hard here. But I want more of that. I want Saw and Mon pushing the power dynamic. I want Luthen to do the ultimate sacrifice. And, we're going to get Andor doing something cool. But I didn't know if you want to delve into the Ghorman Massacre now, because it's hard to really... I've got a few quotes here that I just want to say.
Sure.
So I've got one of them, which is the gentleman we like, I call him a busboy, but he's not a busboy. He's like the guy in the hotel. He's called Thela. Thela, or Thela, whatever. I love him. He's great. He has a quote, "Rebellions are built on hope," which is the famous line that Andor says to Jyn Erso, and then Jyn Erso says back to him in Rogue One. So that's a nice little thing. Yeah. Rebellions are built on hope. Then you've got, I haven't got the exact quote here. I wrote it kind of, I was watching the Ghorman Massacre, and when I watched the episode first, when it was first happening for 20 minutes, I didn't write a single note. When the Ghorman Massacre actually started, I was just glued to the screen, and I couldn't look away. And I looked at my notepad, I was like, I've written nothing, because it was so intense. But there's, in paraphrasing, not adhering to Imperial norms. And that's a very common thing they kept saying before the Ghorman Massacre, and then after it, to justify it, to go, well, they weren't doing what we do. They weren't adhering to our laws. They weren't fitting in. They weren't falling in line. And I was like, God, that's a lot of weight to it. Because that's what the British Empire did. They invaded places like India and other nations and a lot of Africa. And when you guys need to do what we're doing, and they're like, but we've been doing our way for years. No, you need to do our way. You do this rule. And they're like, we're going to keep doing what we're doing. And then it's like, oh, killed you. It's like, why'd you kill them? They weren't doing it the British way. It's like, but you're not in Britain. Nope, this is part of the British Empire now, so you have to do it. And a lot of religious, the Spanish Inquisition did that. A lot of religious sects go to a different place, enforce rules that don't fit with the culture, and kill the population that don't adhere to that culture. And then they've essentially got this culture under their thumb and move on. And it's like, that is something an imperial thing to do outside of the world, the imperial thing to do. And then I've got the quote of, We are the Gore. So I don't know if you had any comments with that, and then we'll go into the Ghorman Massacre itself.
Yeah, I was bouncing off of that. I think what was interesting is that, again, the Empire machine is so well oiled. They've got a sniper ready. They've got, people. They've got these young lads who they describe, again, it's the propaganda which I quite enjoyed. It's the sensation. I've talked about this recently, is like, and which comes in Mon Mothma's speech is, I recently did a top 5 found footage films, and the idea of media and how it can enforce a narrative, or what is truth. The camera never lies, but does it? Depends who's using the camera, how they're editing the footage, things like that. And again, it's this propaganda. They've got reporters there going, "Oh, it's horrible. Look at all this massacring of these young Imperial boys." And you're like, but that's not the truth. That's the narrative that they want and they need to get out to the Senate. And again, you see it at the Senate because they're just mouthpieces for what that propaganda has been heard and again, it's 2 reporters, so it's like, oh well, they're non-biased, the non-biased reporting. You're like, shut the fuck up, you are lying. And again, that's what goes into Mon's speech, and again, it's this is a lot of kind of real world stuff. Like, we're not necessarily getting the true story, and again, it's being framed in a way to kind of anger certain people, or radicalize one group or another. I thought that aspect was fantastic and played so well. And again, they want them there, and the guy from the Gore, he's like, everything I've done, now we're just going to die. And they're like,
he realized, didn't he, in the previous episode, he tries to stop people. He's like, he goes, oh no, this is a trap. We're falling into it. And he panics. And then he grabs Syril at that point, I think, in the messenger. It's either in the messenger episode or at the start of Who Are You? And he grabs Syril, and Syril like aggressively grabs him back. And he's like, what are you doing? And he's like, you don't know? He's like, this is happening. He's like, that's just a rumor. It's like, are you a fucking idiot? Are you don't tell me it's a rumor. You're a liar. And Cyril's like, I'm not lying. Oh no, because
he's been lied to. That's
exactly.
That's the
thing. He thought Dedra was going to be truthful to him. That's why he's such a white knight for his cause, thinking, oh, I'm in this. I'm with the ISB. I'm part of the club. And that's like, no, you're being lied to like everyone else, because you're just being used, because the Empire and Palpatine just views everyone as a tool, and that's it.
My other critique with the disjointed nature of this is that I wanted to see, what happened between him and the Gore front. Because, like, all of a sudden in this episode, they're like, I should kill you. And he's like, obviously he's been found out, or he's revealed who he is. And he's like, no, I wasn't here for you. I was here looking for these people. And again, it's, they have got they know the group exists. They know it's there. They are using that group to complete their narrative, to do what they need to do, and to go, oh, it's not this. But I love when it gets to this point. They're like, even though they are still doing the propaganda, even though like is it Pendergrass? No, Pendergrass. Partagaz, sorry. He says, they have weapons by now, and they're like, we are counting on it. We want that aggressive, violent image on screen. We want the young Imperial boys dead. There's a reason they've been chosen, because they're inexperienced. The flame is going to be lit. The bonfire is going to go off. The spark is it, and then that's what's going to happen. And it's just the whole maneuvering and manufacturing of it's fascinating, but also like horrifying that it happens in the real world as well.
Oh, 100%. It's happening in the real world, I think. It happens. There's a lot of things going on in Palestine and Israel at the moment. I'm not going to delve into that political things, but it's like I've watched a couple of documentaries and seen some stuff on it, and I'm like, it's not far removed from what's happening. What, a group of people being under pressure from a regime, and then an explosion happening against a regime which was classed as being horrible, and then that justifying some degree of a genocide. It's like, okay, I'm not saying that one side is necessarily correct or not, because in the real world it's much more nuanced and complicated than the Empire, who we know are the bad guys in their quotes. But it is very complicated. And when you look into this, it's like, this is one story. And if you try to explain, like, this has taken, before the Ghorman Massacre, there were 3 episodes in the last arc, and the Messenger one, and this one. So it's basically 5 episodes, each about 45 minutes-ish. So you're thinking, like, we have seen, like, what, 2.5 hours of almost pure dialogue of just talking, where the majority of it has been about the Ghorman Massacre. And it literally, like, how do we as the Empire orchestrate over at least a year of these pieces fitting together to make this event happen so we can wipe out a population to get the resource. It's not a simple one episode thing. No. This is over years, really.
Yeah, literally years in this show. And again, the planning, and like you said, it's started from like the prequels, and it's been moving towards this end game, let's say. And yeah, but I like seeing all the pieces fit together and the cogs. Again, it's tragic, it's horrific. I'm not saying I enjoy this, this occurring to these characters because it's horrible. But I liked the way we saw the jigsaw put together, so to speak, that each individual piece, and again, like you were saying, the ripple effect, and that's why I have to go back to Syril. Is again, I don't think I understand why people don't like him. I understand I don't really still understand. Kind of, I think. I know going into, the final arc and Dedra and what, her relationship with Syril and what he believed and what he thought he believed. And again, it started with him and Andor. And again, there's a moment during the massacre, Andor, and he's like, there's a great moment actually earlier on where they're in the plaza together. I think it's the Ghorman Massacre. I can't remember what they call it, the little area or
where the monument is and stuff. I think it's the Ghorman Plaza.
Plaza, okay. I think because I was thinking about this because there's a plaza in the Senate as well. I was confused, and they say go to the plaza. So yeah, they walk past each other.
Yeah, and Megan pointed that out as well.
Like they have been Syril has been looking for him. He's the main driving factor in his life, and to where that ripple effect has brought him to this moment. And at this point, he just walks past him, just doesn't even notice because he's so consumed with what's happening now and what he's triggered, the events he's done, and how he's been manipulated by believing in, and again, Dedra kind of is in that role as well. Like you said, she was in the Kinder stockade or whatever it was, what they called her parents,
the orphanage thing.
Yeah, very, very German, very, very Nazi imagery and naming.
Very much the Hitler Youth for Orphans.
Yeah,
in an academy. Yeah,
but again, you can kind of understand where she's coming from to a degree because she had nothing, and then she had the Empire. This is her life, and
that's how the Empire got a lot of people in the comics, in the books. There's a lot of worlds that the Emperor, specifically in the early days of the Empire, the Emperor specifically goes to under just worlds that haven't got jobs, that haven't got infrastructure.
Not unlike the Jedi, Mike.
Well, the Jedi go there and then the Jedi just go there, pick out the Force sensitive kids and bail. Whereas what the Empire did, they do it. There's a character called Bail Valance who you'd quite like his story actually in the Star Wars comics. If I was going to recommend you any Star Wars comics, it would be the story of Bail Valance, and shout out to Valance Nation. So he's a cyborg. He doesn't start as one, but his whole career, he becomes an Imperial because he's on a planet that I can't remember its name that has nothing. They have like a mine, and that's it. No one's got any money. And then the Empire come in. They want the resource, and instead of just wiping everyone out, this is the early days of the Empire, they employ everyone. They give the miners lots of money. They do all this kind of stuff. And then when they're kind of done with it, they go, right, all of you who worked for us, you can come with us if you want. We'll take care of your families. And they actually do take care of the families, not I'll take care of you. Take care of the families. You can come enroll in the Imperial Army. You'll have a life and infrastructure, and we'll send money back to your family. And a lot of people are like, that's amazing. Valance goes off. He ends up being in the Imperial Academy with Han Solo, as well as a few others. He gets in a horrible crash, which isn't his fault. And then he gets a cybernetic thing. He gets into another accident a little bit later on, another cybernetic thing. And eventually he gets so cybernetically enhanced, the Empire's like, I'm not paying for this. You are useless to us now. And they throw him aside. And he's like jaded. He doesn't know what to do with himself. He's barely human anymore. And he is a tortured soul. Bail Valance is... the writer, the person who primarily writes him is Ethan Sachs, and everyone is like, Ethan, why do you keep hurting Valance? We just want him to have a good life. And it's like every time something good happens to him, something bad happens, and he wants to die, but he basically can't because he's like a cyborg. He's such a tragic story, but I love him. He's my favorite, one of my favorite comic characters. You'd really like him. But the reason I mention it is because in the early days of the Empire, they first off do go to impoverished worlds, and they do give these people something to live for. It makes people allegiant to the Empire. It gives people a job and a purpose and all these things. And people go, you know what, the Empire's not bad. So when little insurrections start initially, people going, this Empire's not good, the Republic is better. They go, the Republic ignored us for a century. The Empire comes in, they do stuff. Palpatine came here, he saw our world needed stuff, he saved us. And it was part of the long game to get these Imperials in there in the early days before the atrocities started. Because you think, like, Palpatine in the prequels, he was literally planning this for like 20 years. Up to Order 66, it's like a 20-year plan. So when he's in power, he's already got the next 20 plus 30 years already mapped out. That's how the Death Star gets created, because he already had that plan. So I really like that Palpatine has got that, and he goes in and understands how you get people in that way, because the Empire can't just go in and murder everyone and everyone's like, that's cool. They have to have loyal people. And with Dedra, she wants order. She's never known anything else. Syril, he's just a police officer who basically watched a couple of terrorists, which is basically what Andor were on Ferrix and stuff like that. Yeah. He watched a bunch of terrorists kill his friends and family, like police officers experience, you know, especially in America. You watch a gunman kill all those people, and they're like, I want revenge. I want law and order. We need to stop people being able to kill all these people. How do we do that? We tighten the grip. We install a curfew, blah, blah, blah. Syril, although I don't agree with him politically, I don't think he's a bad person. He's a weenie little dickhead, but he's not a bad person, because in his view, he was like, I worked on Ferrix. In this thing, I want to make something of myself. All my friends get killed. I know this guy did it. No one believed me. I lost my whole career. And then I'm basically having to spend years trying to prove myself again to get back to where I was. And then he gets to this point with the Ghorman Massacre where he thought, no, we're the good guys. And then he has that like crisis of faith.
Yeah.
And he's like, but I've been fighting my whole life for this. And now it might be the fact that Andor's actually right. And then there's that moment where he sees Andor and he just goes rabid.
Yeah.
And he beats the crap out of Andor. He almost kills him twice. Yeah, and you're like, him doing that is like a manifestation of blaming Andor for everything. Because you say, Andor for him is the cause of his job failing in the first place. He thinks Andor must be responsible in part for the Ghorman Massacre, or the thing that is happening. And it's like, well, really, Syril was angry at the Empire, but one man can't just fight the Empire. So he takes all his anger out on Andor. Yeah. And then there's that brilliant moment, obviously it's the name of the episode, where he's on the gun at him, and then Andor goes, who are you? And he stops for a second. He's like, you could see him going, I've spent the last, 3 years of my life focused on you obsessively. And thinking that you must clearly have some sort of thing. And Andor literally has no idea who he is. And you're like, if that's not poetry, I don't know what is. It's just, it's brilliant.
Again, like I go back to the thing where you mentioned about the ripple effects. Again, it all started with them. It all started with like he wouldn't have met Dedra. He wouldn't have had this relationship. Wouldn't have this kind, loving thing. He wouldn't have had, someone talk back to his mum finally.
That's an amazing scene. I love that,
which is great. I love that. And again, like he's a stickler for kind of the rules and the order and right and wrong, and and he is that. He's kind of the fundamentalist kind of law, guy, what have you. But again, like you said, things are a lot more nuanced than just that. And I think, as a young person, I probably felt the same way. Like I was like, drugs are bad. I'll never do drugs. I have done drugs. So things have changed, but initially I was like, oh my God, they're dangerous and this and that and legal and what
you do them, you're bad,
I'm gonna end up with, hypodermic in my needle in the corner dying, it's gonna happen, It doesn't. It's not quite, black and white like that, which is the world, and which is very much Andor, is the greys of it. And yeah, like you said, and again, it's the reason Dedra's forced him to do this. It's the reason his relationships fall apart. It's the reason he almost kills Dedra and throttles her. It's the reason he, was going to threaten to throw her out the window. Like, it's all come apart, and that's it. His real enemy is the Empire, but because he can't fight an Empire at this point, because he's part of the problem, he's part of the Empire, he goes, you're going to be the outlet for my anger because I still hold a grudge against you. And then that's for him is just seeing it all. Again, all the dominoes have fallen into place because of him. And again, it goes back to that thing like we've been saying, like he is there at every all of these opportunities, all these scenarios. He's like, he was there here, he was on Ferrix, he was on Narkina 5, he was, and again, it's almost like, and again, I think this arc kind of is pushing the idea that the Force has put him in those places. Even Luthen again mentions it, like we said, like you always seem to be in the right place at the right time for whatever reason. And again, I liked that idea. Again, I didn't expect it to come through. I didn't expect to feel that or sense that, but again, again, that's just the good writing where I was like, oh shit, yeah, oh yeah, oh yeah, and like it again, it all just kind of fits into place. And yeah, it was a wonderful bit of kind of just, oh god, yeah, just I don't know, just all came together, all coalesced in a right way. Again, the arcs, the separate arcs are a bit disconnected, but this particular kind of like from the beginning of the first show to here, I was like, wow, we are really coming. This has been a journey. We are kind of coming full circle to a point, especially with some of these characters. And then we lose Syril. So, if you're not a fan of Syril, don't worry about it. He's gone. Forget about it. But I love Dedra kind of, I think you talked about her pulling her collar.
I predicted it. Everyone was saying it was Vader. And I said from the start, it's not going to be Vader. She's going to be having a panic attack about the Empire doing something that's too wrong that she doesn't believe it. I said that in a recording. I knew it wouldn't be Vader. Well, I didn't know. I very strongly assumed. And I was right, and I'm so glad because Vader. I don't want Vader in this. No. But yeah, I like that it's her. Like she's the cause. Megan said it when watching it. She was like, of course she's feeling like that. Like she's the reason her boyfriend's basically been killed. And when she was doing it, she's like, yeah, you deserve that. You're the reason. Like she was talking to the thing because Megan gets quite animated. She was like, you're the reason this happened. This is your fault. And I was like, you're not wrong. Yeah,
no, absolutely right. Absolutely right. And again, it's those moments as well with. Just like the guy who comes in with a scar, one of the Imperial leaders
or something.
Yeah. It doesn't really matter. He's just standard bog standard guy. But he's like, I'm the I'm the mechanism and you're the trigger puller or something like that.
Yeah, I'm the finger, you're the trigger, or the other.
That was it. Yeah, something like that. Some kind of thing like that. And we have and he brings it and Dedra says these are just children. These are children. We're putting children in a situation we know is going to go bad. We've orchestrated it to go bad. It's not like we'll just wait for them to make a mistake or a wrong move. We are forcing the hand of these people and forcing this massacre. Not only compounding the tragedy of the Tarkin massacre, or I think was it Tarkin massacre? Or
From like 10. Well, but this
10
point,
years ago.
I think at this point is about 15, 16, 17 years ago, where he landed a ship on 500 people.
500 people. The kid is there. The guy is on the desk. That was his dad, who saved him from getting crushed. You're compounding again the tragedy, because not only was there a tragedy that happened here again 15 years ago, it's again history is repeating itself. And what you were saying before about, this is how the Empire convinces people, the current political system isn't working for them. They're being let down. They've not got much money. They've not got much resources. They've got much hope. And in the real world, in the UK, we're seeing that right now. We're seeing a rise in Reform UK, people voting because they feel like I don't agree with any of the Reform UK views. I'm not a fan of any of that. I did not support. I did not vote for them. Just to clarify, but I can see how they feel and why they would vote for a party like that.
That's why Trump got into power for a lot of reasons.
Exactly.
A lot of people are like, this current system isn't working. Let's try something radical. Trump wants to fight the system. Let's do it. Obviously, Trump is hugely a part of that system. And I'm sure Nigel Farage is as well. He lied about Brexit. We're going to get loads of money in the NHS. No, I lied about that. So it's like, I don't trust a lot of those things, but I understand. I'm like, when you feel like your whole family's been screwed over and you haven't got money to feed your kids and all the prices are going up and you've been trying for this, you've tried for this guy, you've tried for this guy, you've tried for that woman, you've tried for that person. Nothing is working. When an extremist comes in, that's how you radicalize. The whole system breaks down and falls apart, and you think the only thing we can do is something more extreme. I don't necessarily blame people for those decisions. Just like you're saying, although I don't adhere to those views, I don't attack or think of anything less of necessarily of those people who think those things, because I'm like, when you're that desperate, I can't blame you for trying other things a lot of the time for your family. It's a horrible situation to be in.
Yeah, and again, do not support those views. Do not agree with them. And I have family members that maybe do support some of those groups or vote for them. Again, I love them as people. Again, don't agree with everything they think or believe, or things they'll say. But I get it. I get why you would, in this scenario, go with something like that and lead. And I can see why people would. And again, like, I've been younger and I've had certain views I do not hold anymore, but they have been, not. I wouldn't say as similar, but there's certain strains of thought process. But again, I come from a working class town, a working class background. So there is stuff that's unfortunately, in my wiring in my brain that is there. It is a constant fight to not go along with that wiring. It's not something I want to agree with or go ahead with some of that wiring. Again, it's not something I'm just going to like. I'm going to drop my guard all of a sudden, be a racist. Don't worry, I'm not that bad.
But we all have those things.
Yeah, it's like you have, unconscious biases, don't you? It's a proven thing. And again, you have to be vigilant of those unconscious biases, because you can, again, be radicalized or be turned towards a certain group or party or movement, let's say. It is there. And again, I think this show is, again, I feel like the last season, they were like, which we're going to be, it's a bit more of an allegory. It's a bit more of an allegory, we're going to say here. But in this show, they're going visas, they're talking about the stuff that actually, and again, I think it was recorded or filmed or completed some time ago, but it's as current as anything. It's as topical as anything. And it's powerful. And like you said, things going on in Gaza, there's, RFK Jr. in the US saying, autism, people with autism are not going along with the American ideal, like you said, like the imperial ideal. They're not going to make any money, and they're not going to be able to be taxed. Oh, so we'll register them all. Oh, okay, register them. That's how it starts. Yeah, okay.
There wasn't a huge issue with that 80 years ago in Germany, was there? That's never been a problem. Ugh,
yeah, I mean, like it's in the X-Men as well. Like I'm going to talk about a human culling in an upcoming X-Men podcast, and again, starts with the register. Again, I sincerely hope it doesn't go as far as what they're discussing or what they're implying, but these topics, these issues are relevant. And if you are a Star Wars fan and you're going, it's got issues, it's woke, it's all this, get the fuck out. Don't watch it then. This is very relevant, and you should be listening. This is, not only is it entertaining, it's good TV, but it is informative. And if it wakes you up and gives you a different perspective, at least, so it makes you ask questions, that's the best this thing can do for me, is be entertaining, informative, and again, give you a different perspective.
That's what art is. Art is meant to be entertaining and provocative. They're the two main things. They're meant to make you think. They make you feel, make you think. That's what I think about art. It's got to do one or the other, and this does both.
Yeah, tick those boxes. Definite 100% tick those boxes.
Yeah, a lot of art does, Fast and Furious, not a lot of thought-provoking stuff, a lot more entertaining stuff. There's other things which are a lot more thinking stuff, not as entertaining, but they're all a part of things. I think also with stuff that's more entertaining, like Fast and Furious, is much more about escapism. How simple life could be if you could solve it with a fast car. Calling people family and blowing up a submarine in the Arctic, and then you save the world. How simple would life be? But I want to ask you, so I knew the Ghorman Massacre was coming. I said that in the last pod. I very vaguely, mildly spoiled it to a degree, but I'm also as like...
We knew... I had a feeling...
It wasn't I was saying this is how it's going, because I didn't know exactly how it was going to happen. I just knew, and I didn't say it on the pod. I knew Ghorman. Ghorman Massacre occurs, Mon Mothma leaves the Senate because of it, and she almost gets killed leaving. I didn't obviously overtly say that because I don't want to spoil things too much, but I hinted at it quite heavily because, a lot of my viewers, a lot of the lovely audience have watched Star Wars Rebels. So in the episode, season 3, episode 18, episode 16 or 18 is called Secret Cargo. I released a little clip of that on Star Wars Chit-Chat on Instagram and on YouTube, so check that out if you want more details. But yeah, we knew about that in 2017. So as soon as Ghorman got mentioned, I think it first got mentioned in season 1 of Andor. She mentions it in the Senate once. She says the Ghorman people being mistreated, and then it's nothing else is said. And I was like, the Ghorman Massacre's coming. I was like, it's going to happen in season 2, and they're going to do the other side of Secret Cargo. Because Secret Cargo, you see her issues after she's left Coruscant, getting to Yavin 4, and then doing a continuation of her speech. So you get to find out what else she was going to say. She goes hard. So there's a bit at the start of the episode, which is like a bit of a continuation, and then there's a bit at the end of the episode, which is even further to that. But with this, so I knew loosely it was going to happen. What I did not anticipate overtly was that the order from the Imperial snipers was to shoot their own people, to kill one of the Greens, to then spark, because they're inexperienced and they don't, when a crisis occurs, they're very level-headed, for a sniper to kill one of the Greens, one of their own Imperials, to incite them to realize they have to overreact, violence onto the Ghormans, which then causes the whole explosion. So how did you feel? We're there at the Ghorman Massacre. How did you feel witnessing that scene? I know you kind of saw it coming, but from that scene onward of the Ghorman Massacre, how did it make you feel? What did you think about it going on? Did you expect it to a degree? Like, let us know what you thought.
I did expect something horrible was going to happen, because again, it's been building. Again, this, they had to go in and check what these rebels were like on Ghorman. Are they good enough? Are they trained? Do they need it? Again, you've got that speech from Luthen saying, and Andor says they're not ready. If we do something, they're going to die. And then Luthen says, again, if Ghorman dies, it will burn brightly. It will be good for the campaign. And that's Luthen's kind of thing during all of this is, I have to do things I'm not comfortable with. I'm having to sacrifice people and my life in order to make sure that we get to a point in the future after my death where we could be free of the Empire. The Empire could end. So yeah, I knew it was coming, but again, again, just because you know something's coming doesn't mean that you're ready for it.
Sometimes it's worse.
Yeah, exactly. And you're kind of like, and I'm dreading it. I'm dreading that moment. And again, the editing is very kind of sharp and quick, and it's ratcheting up. You're seeing the barricades being brought forward. People are marching around, and all the people are going, and they're like, they're opening up the plaza. Let's go. Woo! And, we are the Ghor. We are the Ghor. We are the Ghor. Is the, not the chant, but I'm going to say that's the football chant. But yeah. And then we see, again, it starts off kind of as any protest does. It's, a lot of angry voices singing, tensions, are high. And then, yeah. And again, like, again, it's been planned, it's been orchestrated, it's been worked out. Again, Dedra is already kind of unsure about the Empire and unsure what she's doing and how it's going. And again, Syril is there. Syril is her moral compass, really, in the show. Like when they get together, he is there. He loves her. He genuinely cares for her. He genuinely believes in what she's doing and her work. But due to the way Krennic has organized this and the way it needs to be, it needs to happen, it's kept secret from him. And I actually quite enjoyed when he was putting like the little wire in front of the door, and he was
I love
going.
that. He's a lot smarter than I think we gave him credit for in season one.
Again, we think he's like this goofball, dim. He's not. He's unconventional. He's an unconventional like looking guy, and the way he acts, and he's definitely kind of, for me, he's like very like neurodivergent esque. There's something about him there where I'm like, yeah, he has these kind of traits that I could see there.
Yeah.
And again, like you've mentioned wonderfully, the on the bed scene was great. I love that moment. Love it. We've all been like that. We all felt that. But yeah, there's stuff I like about Syril. I like about his arc and stuff. So I don't think he's as disposable as character as we may have felt. And I think, like you said, with all these shows, like if you go back and you watch them and you rewatch them and you take it all in, and again with kind of hindsight and where they're building towards, I think people might enjoy Syril's arc a bit more and his character, and pull a little bit more of it, feel like it's together. Because I feel like in the first season, like, why is he here? What is he doing? What is he adding? And I think now we kind of know. But yeah, it was, again, not entirely as I kind of expected. I was like, it's going to have to be something like this along these lines.
Do you think it was going to be so harrowing, though? Because I almost linked it to, it's not as bad as this, but what I'm about to say is one of the greatest scenes in cinema history, which is the start of Saving Private Ryan. Yeah. That's the vibe I got. The start of Saving Private Ryan is one of the greatest shot things in history, full stop. It's so historically accurate and it's incredible, but that is visceral horrendousness, watching a half blown up person and it actually happened. For this, I feel like it's that reined back a bit, but it's the level of chaos, the level of like the shaky camera that it being gratuitous, and that everything that's happening is like, this was avoidable horrendousness, but that it's avoidable in air quotes because it didn't have to happen. But then when you see once it starts, it's going to play to the end. And when you're just sat there for like 15-20 minutes just watching in horror, snipers shooting unarmed civilians running away, and people being killed, and it gets worse and worse and worse, and then the Imperial or the Imperial security droids come out, the KX droids, and it's even worse. And you're like, this is, and I was watching it going, I knew this was going to happen, but like the weight of it, I think still even shock me, even knowing what Andor's capable of the show. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah, I again, like you said, I think it is that kind of idea, but reined in. I don't think they would. Because again, this is a show kids can watch. Like 100%. It's still, it is still a teenage. They can't even when people are shot, they kind of just go, oh, I'm shot.
They just fall to the ground. Yeah,
you don't see the blaster burn. You don't see it go through them. You don't see.
There's no coughing up blood or very little of that.
Yeah, it's very little of and again, like that fist fight with Syril and Andor is probably about as like physically violent as it gets. But you're right, it is absolutely harrowing. And I don't think like I said, I knew something horrible was happening because it's Andor. Like David said it, I think in the last podcast, it's Andor. Don't expect good things to happen. And yeah, we have this kind of just, it doesn't go, I wouldn't say it goes hard, like visually, like it doesn't show like that. Again, it's not like a gruesome gore scene with
no.
I mean, I guess it's gory.
Oh,
there we go. But yeah,
the sound effects help. Like when you the punching with Syril and Andor, you feel it. But like when the Imperial security droids grab people and throw them, and Enza dies and she lands on like her neck and just crunches. It's like a lot of that is like
that guy's just lying down. He's shot and he can't do anything. Nobody's helping him, and he's just witnessing it. And again, the main leader comes back, shoots Syril, but even he's like, there's nothing else I can do now. This is the most I can probably do. This is the most effective I can be.
It's chaos, isn't it?
Yeah, it's utter chaos. And again, but that's what I really liked about these two episodes as well, is that you don't get any scenes with Luthen. Because he's not supposed to be there, because he knows it has to happen like this. It is playing out exactly as he needs it to. And that's the chilling thing about Luthen, is he knows this has to happen. He has to make it happen, or he has to at least let it happen for the Rebel Alliance to kind of galvanize. And he knows Mon Mothma's got to give that speech. He knows it. And that I found kind of chilling as well, that he made no appearance. There was no like, oh, I'm a bit sad, all these people are having to die or anything. The fact that there is no appearance, no sign of him, says a lot to me as well. The lack of him.
Yeah, I didn't think about that. That's very interesting. It's a lot, because obviously I watched it for the second time today, but it was one of those where, especially on the second watch, I'm really being able to look to the side of like edge things. But I was like, this is not only, I can see why this is one of the highest rated, because a lot of people who did see it coming were like, God, I didn't think it was going to be this bad. I knew it was going to be a massacre, but I felt it a bit in the end of season 1, which obviously I recently rewatched, which I encourage everyone to rewatch Andor season 1, especially the finale, where there's the bit where you've got Marva's hologram, again, pop behind me, and she says, fight the Empire, which she goes, I've been sleeping, we've been sleeping, and then fight the Empire. The Imperial officer kicks over B2 Emo, and then Brasso goes, bam! When that starts to happen, one of the officers, I think the guy kicks over B2 Emo, he leaves, and he goes, open fire. I remember watching that for the first time, going, that was quite bad. When I rewatched it this time, it really hit me emotionally. Like, I think when you're younger, you don't really take in the weight of how horrendous it is to fire on unarmed civilians. Like when you're a kid, you don't really process it. You don't really conceptualize of death. You inadvertently disassociate. I watched loads of stuff as a kid. I was like, loads of people dying, whatever. I watch stuff now where like a dog dies and I'm a mess. And it's like, there's certain things I watch now which hit me a lot harder. And I felt the tugging of my heart in this, the second time especially. But when I watched Ferrix, I was like, how being in that situation where you're just protesting something. In Ferrix, it was a funeral. And in this, it's literally going, we're being destroyed by this, government we didn't elect. And you're literally there using your freedom to go, I'm using my voice to say this is wrong. And whatever way you're saying it. And then a regime has come in and is literally just gunning people down who disagree with you. And it's like, it's just so much to deal with. And again, we're in privileged positions because, we live in Britain. We have places that we live and stuff. This is actually going on in the world. We don't live in a war-torn part of the world where we're having to fight for our life every day. But it is just that it has so much weight to it. And that's what I think Andor really strives at, is showing that so many political movements, political decisions, the choice to rebel, all those kinds of matters, they have so much weight to it. Because, I love the original trilogy. Who doesn't? But when Luke Skywalker rebels against the Empire, you don't feel like he's doing a rebellion. He just kind of, oh yeah, his uncle and aunt get died, which is a horrendous scene. But you go, yeah, they're dead. All right, well, let's just go off here. Let's have a little fun adventure. Oh, look, there's a Wookiee here. We're flying through space. Yeah, Han Solo making jokes. Yeah, what's that? It's no moon. Sneak on, get off. What happened? Who cares? Let's go back. And then it's like, oh, Alderaan blows up. You're like, oh, that's really bad. Yeah. Anyway, let's blow it up, move on. We did it. It's a medal. And you're like, Star Wars is inherently, the original A New Hope is inherently like a light-hearted adventure film in sci-fi fantasy. It's amazing. But you don't watch that, and there's no part really that you're like, God, that was harrowing. You go, oh, yeah. But then when you see stuff like this, you go, God, if Star Wars the original was directed, if they remade it now with Tony Gilroy, you just think like the blowing up of Alderaan, how you would frame that differently. Luke blowing up the Death Star wouldn't be a yahoo moment. It would be, I just fucking killed millions of people. Like, genuinely, I know Clerks, they talk about it, but like millions of people I've just wiped out, and I had to do it because they killed billions. And all because one or a couple of crazy people basically thought they should control the Empire. And I think that's what Andor does. It contextualizes a lot of these things. And like Rogue One, I think, was the first film. You get the end of Revenge of the Sith, Order 66. That's a harrowing scene. But generally, the prequels, although they've got definitely darker moments, they don't have the weight to them like these do. That's the key difference here, I think. And Rogue One has it a bit, but this really hits it home.
One of the things I was going to mention is Andor gives stormtroopers a real sense of dread when they turn up.
Oh yeah,
like in the previous arc with when Brasso is shot and the guy's aiming very slowly, and you're like, okay, they're bad at aiming, so this is them being deliberate, But again, obviously the stormtroopers go up on those stairs, and you're like, oh fuck, and like they do feel like it doesn't feel because it's not like, oh, don't worry, they'll just take it out with a few blasters and lightsabers and stuff. These are, like you said, they're unarmed civilians. These are guys that they're military trained, not only military trained, they're armed and they have armor on. And we've got these young guys getting killed anyway. And then we've got the next level of robot deterrent, droid deterrent, who are superhumanly strong and can throw people and break bones and what have you. And again, when K2SO is going for Andor in that moment, I'm like, oh fuck, like. Because he does stop. He could keep running, but he does stop to try and stop him. And this is another thing I liked, is the guy who accidentally got, what's her face? Cinta killed in the previous episode. He rams the droid, cuts him in half, kind of making up for his mistake a little bit, or redeeming
that's why Andor goes, I remember you, and he says thank you. And you see a little smile, and he's like, you're going to spend the rest of your life making this up, but at least you've taken that on board. You are trying.
Yeah.
That's really all you can do with your mistakes.
Yeah.
He's
owned it. Yeah.
100%. Yeah. I liked that. I also think that what Megan said, again, very insightful, was she was like, what makes this worse is that the Imperials could have just sent the RX droids out at the start, couldn't they? She was like, they could have done that, but they didn't because they needed she was like, all these Imperials got killed because the Empire needed them to die when they could have just sent the Imperial droids out. But because they needed the propaganda, the Empire sacrificed their own people and massacred this whole other group of people, all for this political message. It wasn't just you killed the air quotes enemy. It wasn't even you killed the people in your way. You overtly kill and allow the deaths of your own people before bringing out the Imperial droids just because you need it for that. And when Megan said that, I was like, oh, that's very insightful. I was like, it's even more harrowing when you think about that. Yeah. You've got an end game. You've got these 6 droids that could barely get taken out, especially by unarmed civilians. And you choose not to use them specifically until right near the end, when the crowds start to scatter. And
I guess the droids are basically kind of slave labor as well, aren't they, really? They're kind of, I guess you could argue they're kind of their own marginalized group as well. So
I would say it's almost like, getting like almost animals, like raising an animal. It's almost like raising tigers and then throwing them out into like a crowd.
Yeah. Exactly. Yeah. And they've been programmed to do this and that's, but again, they're programmed by humans, by evil humans to do that. So yeah, no, absolutely, like spot on from Megan again. Always very insightful, Megan. Why aren't you here? You should be on this as well.
She's asleep.
I know where she is. I know she spends more time asleep than anything else, but That's her preferred place. She needs to have that rest. She uses up a lot of energy at her job, so I completely understand. But I'm glad you mentioned it. So yeah, it's full on. Again, I didn't think it was going to be the way we would meet K2SO. I think in this sense,
it's technically a retcon.
Oh, is it? Oh, okay.
Yes, yeah.
Tell me more, sir. Tell me more. I know I do like a good retcon now and again.
Yeah, so there's a comic that came out. It's called Rogue One, Cassian, and K2SO. I did it on Star Wars Comics and Canon many moons ago. It came out August 2017. It's based around the same time. It's not amazing. No one I know who read that comic went, "This is amazing. I'm so glad." It was one of those tie-in comics where you read it and you go, "Okay." Yeah, that's right. How they met. All it is, it's not badly done. There's a couple of cool concepts in there, but in brief, Andor goes on a mission and he damages this K2SO. He damages an Imperial RX droid, KX droid rather, and essentially you see parts from K2's perspective where he gets damaged. His memory core gets damaged and it's got like a percentage. It's going down and down and down and down. And when it eventually goes to 0, he's the K2SO, But essentially, Andor goes on the mission. This Imperial security droid keeps going after him and he keeps taking it out and then it keeps getting up and going after him. And each time he takes it down, the memory kind of gets more corrupted and stuff like that. And it's essentially just eventually it gets down to 0. And then when K2 is basically gone, he goes, "Let's take it with us. And let's tweak it," and then it's K2. So it's not bad, but no one read that and went, "Oh my god, this changed Rogue One for me." It was one of those tie-in comics. You're like, "Oh, cool." I mean, we kind of knew that about, even from Rogue One, we know that about them, don't we? We know he has to have found this droid or broken this droid and fixed it and reprogrammed it to be where he is. Yeah.
So again, it's the same with all. I mean, comics are the last kind of port of call when it comes to continuity of stuff. I cover on Patreon lots of comics that are definitely not in continuity.
Yeah.
But good fun. Some of them are good. Some of them are bad. Some of them are absolute dog shit. But that's the kind of the comic licensed, continuations and stuff that I cover. It can go either way, really. But yeah, I mean, I understand like the continuity. Obviously, the movies and the TV take preference over, and I understand that. I get that. So that makes sense. And again, like you said, it doesn't sound like too different or too,
it's not like the two people who were in the comic.
You're the two people that have gone, "Oh, I loved that comic. That was the best comic I ever read." They might be butthurt about the.
Well, I've never heard anyone say that about that comic. Like again, it wasn't bad, but it's just kind of a filler comic. It's just one of those goes, "Oh, I think this might have happened." It did. All right.
I like these characters. I'm going to read this comic. Hopefully, it's good. That's the best. That's the best you can hope for. Again, I know. They did do the big kind of Legends canon reset thing. So I don't know if they're going to do that again. They will do it again sometime in future.
It's probably going to be years and years and years in the future if we're maybe 50 years or something crazy.
20, 30 years, something.
Maybe. They might just try and keep it going for as long as possible and just focus on different eras. If they're going to have the Dawn of the Jedi movie, they're going to eventually go into
that. I'm interested in that.
They're eventually going to go into like the Legends. What I imagine is going to happen is they're going to basically completely abandon the Skywalker saga and they're going to go into the Knights of the Old Republic kind of stuff, and they're going to start a new trilogy where there's Jedi versus Sith, and that's all they're going to focus on for like years. And instead of retconning, they're just going to go, "Look, everything in the Skywalker saga apart from the odd book or comic is basically done. Yeah. Now we can just focus on these entirely new characters in an entirely new era, and basically all the technology is essentially the same, so it doesn't really matter." That's what I think they're going to do. I think there wouldn't almost be, if Star Wars was a new property, like early 2000s, I think it's different. But I just think with 40 years, I know they did it with Legends, they technically reset it after 30 odd years, but I'm like, they didn't wipe the slate clean.
No,
what they did is George Lucas overtly in numerous interviews said he didn't follow the EU canon. He did not. No. When he did Attack of the Clones, it retconned like several graphic novels and books all about Boba Fett's origins completely, and then they had to release a comic to basically, or another book, I think it was a comic, a whole storyline to basically try and contextualize how the last 20 years of Boba Fett's origin stories, why that was wrong, and why actually the thing with Jango Fett is actually, he's actually a clone. Yeah, all the stuff we had established is because George Lucas overtly went, even he liked a couple of them, like Heir to the Empire, and there's like Coruscant, I think, was named in Heir to the Empire first. So he took elements from that, but he literally said, "I'm not going to change stories I want planned because there's a book or a comic somewhere that might contradict it.
Yeah.
And the prequels contradicted so much more than pretty much any of established lore in Legends, and they had to then rewrite stuff or release stuff that retconned it or contextualized it. The modern canon, there's a few things that don't line up. There's Kanan's backstory a bit. There's a couple of bits here and there, but there's not really anything that's like earth-shattering.
No.
It's just, this is probably one of the biggest retcons, and no one I know, even when Andor Series 1 started, everyone in the Star Wars community went, they're probably going to redo this. We all thought it was B2 emo, but they're like, they're probably going to redo this. We're okay with that. Yeah, well, let's delve into, I do want to get into, we haven't even touched upon Mon Mothma stuff. Welcome to the Rebellion. So there's one bit, because I want to hear what you think about this, because obviously I knew this was coming to almost to a T, and I knew the year it was going to happen as well, because again, Rebels. So there's a bit where there's two bits of dialogue, which I quite like, two quotes. So one of them is when Oren, who is the senator for Ghorman, he's getting arrested in the start, and he says, "It's my people today, yours tomorrow." And then the shot changes to Bail Organa, who's the senator for Alderaan.
Oh.
So 2 years after this happens, Alderaan blows up. So that's a very important thing that I thought was quite clever and subtle. And then also when Bail talks to Mon, we get the second time shit is said in Star Wars history.
I was going to say. Yeah.
First time's in Andor Series 1 by Syril Khan's friend, whose name escapes me, when all the bombing first is happening in the first few episodes. But it's when he says, "Tear the shit out of this place." When he says to Mon, and I love that. Bail, I love Bail as a character, whether or not he's played by Jimmy Smits or Benjamin Bratt. They both did a great job.
Yeah, I think that. But I was concerned that we wouldn't see more of him. I was like, if it's just that little cameo from the other arc, I was like, what was the point? But then,
I think the cameo was solely so they didn't have to do it in here.
Yeah, no, but I think he played a very, very interesting role. I love that moment where the guy from Gore, who in the previous arc was like, "I can't support you, I won't support you. You know, things are happening on Gore, nobody's talking about them. I appreciate you, I like you." And then here, like again, a year has passed, so things have changed, and he goes, "You know what? I always really appreciated you. You've always stuck by us, and you know." I just wanted to let you know how strongly I feel about you, and as a friend, as a colleague, as a fellow politician, what have you. I really like that as he was kind of again before he was kind of pulled away. He went, I've always appreciated you, and she's like, and even then she's saying, "What can I do?"
And then he says, "Protect yourself." So, jeez. Yeah. It's a lot. So what did you realize, again, I potentially may have loosely spoiled it in the discussion show last week, but did you know that Mon was going to be, obviously we knew eventually she was going to be on Yavin 4 because of Rogue One, and then eventually she's in Return of the Jedi. I thought she was in more of the original trilogy. She's only in Return of the Jedi, funnily enough. I thought she was in New Hope.
I always remembered her. Many Bothans died. I remember as a child. I remember that, and I remember having this kind of ethereal presence, almost like an angel.
She does, angelic.
There's something about her.
That. Yeah,
and again, in a world of fucking talking fish admirals and shit, like the fact that this short-haired red-headed woman stood out, and part of me was like, who the fuck is this? Who's this lady? A little bit, like, cause, there's only really Leia, really, the only other woman in the galaxy, basically, effectively.
Apart from like the Twilight dances in Jabba's palace, that's it.
Yeah, there's no other women. Lando's the only black guy. What have you. But I kind of was a bit like, who is this fucking lady? Where does she come from? But again, like memorable, and again, like you believe the gravitas of what she's saying, even in Return of the Jedi, even though she has those, very brief moments. I don't know the actor's name in that, but she was fantastic. And again, this character is still living on, off that small little moment. And again, that's what the great thing about Star Wars is, I think, is the small characters that we gravitate towards that we like, or there's something about them we go, I need more of this. I want more of this. There's something. And again, like I said, I saw her and memorized her, and again, there's Ewoks in there, there's fish people, there's Han Solo, not Han Solo, Lando's co-pilot who's got kind of a vagina for a face.
Nine Num.
Nine Num, there you go. Yeah, vagina face.
Megan hates him. He's her least favorite character in all of Star Wars.
Because he looks like a vagina?
He doesn't like she hates how wet his mouth is. She's like, why is he always dribbling? It's so wet. And I was like,
I mean, that's the ideal form of a vagina you want.
Yeah, but
really.
He's not meant to be a living vagina. He's a Celestin. But the actress who played Mon in Return of the Jedi is Caroline Blackiston.
Right.
Just so I was looking at.
Again, iconic, again, a character that, again, does like Boba Fett, doesn't get much screen time, but there's something about that character we gravitate towards, and we want to know more, and other people want to know more, and the people who are making Star Wars want to know more, and that's why we got this. Again, I think this is peak Mon Mothma, this episode. Like, not only is it's all kind of coming apart, but then she's like, right, this is the moment we need to capture. This is the moment we need to stand up and finally say something, do something. And again, all the while she's doing all this shadowy stuff and things. And again, you referenced it on one of the previous podcasts that her friend died, and she's like, you remember him, Luthen? I miss him, my childhood friend. Do you think about him? And he's like, no, but we've got to get you out of this building. I need this speech to happen, but I've got to. And it was like, so it's what you want, what you need to happen, not what I want.
And she says she's scared of him more than anyone else. It's like, God, that is.
Yeah, which is true though.
He's a scary dude.
He's terrifying. And again, like, if he was on the other side, he would be just as terrifying. But he's on it's Saul Guerrero is terrifying, in his own way. And there's that moment where she's just. Like, she can't trust anybody. Even the guy you pointed out early on, the Naboo guy who's
Erskine,
in Rebels.
Erskine Samaj.
Yeah. Again, and like you said, and like she says, when did you start, following me and tracking me and reporting to Luthen? She's like, at the wedding. And again, we see that wedding, we see him there. And again, it's deliberate. Him being there is deliberate. Him being there is not only deliberate for storytelling, it's deliberate for Luthen's plan and what he needs to occur with all this, with all the wheels turning, with the Empire's plans as well. He knows and needs this to occur. And again, but he does genuinely want to protect her, but also he genuinely needs the speech to happen, and she needs to be safe in order for it to move forward and to progress and to provide that hope that he has not been able to gain for the rebellion. He's not been able to do that with what he does, and he never could. He's not that person, but Mon is, and this is her kind of launch pad. Again, very dangerous, very uncertain times, but this is her moment. And again, she's given that launch pad. Like I said, Bail has that little subsection C. Actually, technically, Mon can speak on this issue because of this, and he, gives the floor. And again, she's trying to rehearse her speech. I also thought it was quite interesting with Driver as well. Now Andor. So Bail's got a team that are going to get her out. Apparently, Bail's team has been infiltrated by the ISB, so they can't trust it. And Luthen tells Mon, don't trust them. I'm going to send somebody else. So he's going to send Andor. Andor's like, I'm going to quit. I think I'm going to quit. I'm not sure. Blah, blah, blah. He gets sent. And then, oh God, I was going to talk about something. Yeah, the driver. So the driver at the end, like they know, she knows he's a plant. There's a comment from the guy from Naboo and her. She's like, I'm going to get a new driver. And he's like, no, because they'll send someone clever next time. So, which I thought was a great line. And what happens later is, again, they've got this whole kind of trying to get out of this Senate without being killed or captured. And again, my issue with her, as Kleya recently, like later goes, oh, it must have been so hard. You must be exhausted. It didn't seem that difficult for them to get out for me. But that's again, and that felt disingenuous from her because she's such a hard-nosed character. And that one bit of kind of genuine kind of emotion and feeling felt off to me. I felt she would have been like, that was too easy for you, or that could have been much harder, or something like that. But oh no, you got it. It didn't feel quite right.
I have thoughts on that.
Okay.
Well, first of all, this arc is when you first see her with her hair down, which I think is intentional.
Okay, cool.
So she's less tightened, but also her and Luthen know they're getting to the end game.
Yeah.
They've been.
Not much time.
We haven't actually seen her for a year, to be fair. And the last time we saw her was, we saw her a little bit in the last arc. I know she's been quite harsh on Andor, but prior to that, it was the key situation and stuff. Yeah. And
that was great. I love that.
That was such a tense scene. Incredible. But I think the way I read it is that it's easy for her to tell Luthen or Andor to be like, pull your shit together, go ahead, you're a soldier. Yeah. Mon is not that. She's a politician. She's never really held a weapon. She's never been in a fist fight. She's never been chased by an army. She's just trying to do what's right. And she has decided in that moment to not only forever have to be on the run, but also abandon her whole family, her life, her assets, and literally be probably the most famous person in the galaxy at that moment.
But this is the thing.
Yeah.
I wouldn't mind that, but she's not saying it to Mon. She's saying it to Andor.
Right.
That's my issue.
That's a good point.
Like, if she's saying it to Mon, I get it, because I think she would genuinely feel for Mon, and again, she is risking a lot. But she says it to Andor, and it just didn't feel quite right for me.
That's a fair point.
Because the way she's spoken to before, the way she's acted before, it didn't feel, I don't know.
I'll tell you why I realise. He came straight from the Ghorman Massacre. He hasn't rested. He hasn't even been to Coruscant. He witnessed the Ghorman Massacre.
Yeah.
He went to her. She was like, "You probably need to rest or something." And he's like, "I'll do that in a bit." He was, when they had that conversation in the earlier on the episode. She was being a bit hard on him, but she was like, "You need to have a rest or something." And he's like, "No, let's just do this thing." She's like, "Okay, here's the mission with Mon," and he did that. So can you imagine witnessing the Ghorman Massacre?
Yeah,
getting the K2 thing, escaping out, getting to Coruscant, getting a new mission, infiltrating the Senate building, saving a senator, leaving that, killing people in your wake, getting back to also the place where he'd hidden before. And I think that might have been the place he was with Bix.
It was, yeah, because she says, Mon says, "You know this place." And he was like, "I used to live here, yeah."
Yeah, so I think it might be, I also think Kleya is now starting to soften a bit to people. I think she is kind of, because also Luthen is a hard ass, and so is she, but it was like, I think a lot of her tension prior was like, we can't do this, we can't be found out, we're not ready, everything's going to fall apart. Once Mon opened that can of worms, it's kind of like, we've only got a very short period of time because we're not going to be able to operate in the shadows anymore. This is going from a cold, covert war to an outright galactic civil war, which is the name of the era from sort of Rogue One onwards.
They're building an army. That's what Mon's cousin says, or niece says.
So that's what I think. I now that you said it like that, I kind of get it. But I think that's probably it. I mean, the Ghorman Massacre was horrendous.
I am absolutely nitpicking. Like, this is me. Like, all of my critiques are absolutely nitpicking. But again, I still think it's top tier television. But yeah, about the driver, they managed to get out of the Senate. They cut the transmission. She names Emperor Palpatine as they cut the transmission,
which is brutal, calling him a monster.
Yeah, exactly. And it's like, and the guys at the ISB, like they've. The Naboo guy finds the bug, and then that's how they kind of start know about each other. She fires him, and he's off, and then they work out a plan where he comes back and helps Andor get in and knows the layout, so they can find a way out, because they can't go this way; they have to go that way. But the driver's like, he's reporting in to the guy because they're checking in with him, like, what's she doing? And the bug's gone down. What's happening? And he's like, "Oh, I don't know. She's been in there all night practicing her speech. This is very unlike her." And he's like, "Right, when she comes out, you know." And he hears the speech. He hears the speech on the radio, or whatever form of radio they have there in Star Wars, in the universe. He hears it, and then he's genuinely worried. And he goes to find her. And again, as she's walking out, Andor's protecting her. He's like, "Can we trust him? Who is he? Can we trust him? What's his name? Oh, he's ISB. He's an ISB plant." I genuinely think the guy, even though he's an ISB plant, he genuinely is worried for her and wants to get her out safely. And Andor can't take that chance. And he goes, "Oh yeah, Florin or Clorin or Cloris."
Yeah,
Cloris?
Cloris, I think, something like that.
We'll say Cloris. We'll say Cloris. And he goes, "Oh, Cloris, yeah, we found her. We've got her. And he shoots him dead, like cold-blooded. And again, Mon's like, "Fuck me, Christ," and he's and Andor's like, "I'm not taking any chances. Let's just go, get in the car. Let's get off." And I think that's another thing is about these characters is, I think previously in previous Star Wars content, we do paint the Imperials as like they are just pure evil. There's nobody on there is nice. Again, they don't have many aliens in the Empire. It's very like white, human. Like, this is it. Again, that Nazi kind of puritanical kind of authoritarian.
There's not even that many women as well.
No, and again, that's the Dedra thing, isn't it? That's she's had to strive and fight to get where she is and have the opportunities she's had. And yeah, it's like it's the way they manage to layer even these small characters like Cloris. They're not all bad. They are still human. They they are conflicted. All the characters, I think every character we see on some level is conflicted. And I think that only just adds to the drama and the intrigue. And again, it's not always like politics is not black and white. The heroes and villains are not always black and white. It is, again, like I said earlier, it's the grey. This is the grey. You talk about the grey Jedi, you talk about the Sith and the Jedi. This is the grey of the Star Wars, and the kind of, again, somewhat grounded aspect. And just makes the storytelling all that richer and all that more powerful, and all the characters, even again, these tiny small characters like a Mon Mothma in Return of the Jedi, it makes me remember these moments for that.
Yeah, I think because with the driver, it's humanizing, isn't it? And it's like, what I like is with Andor shooting him, it really kind of shows, as the series has gone on, Andor takes less chances. Yeah. We saw in the Heist arc, his luck
is running out. He says it. His luck is running out.
Exactly. But like we see in the Heist arc, he shoots the actor Ebon Backrack, I think the guy who's in the bear. He shoots him, or the one who's now the Thing in Fantastic Four. Shoots him. And it's like, because the other guy says, the axe forgets, but the tree remembers. And like, he shoots him because he wants to take the money. It's like, oh, that's a bit sudden, but okay. Then you get Narkina 5 and he takes out loads of prison guards because like it's us with them. Then Ferrix, and he kills Imperials, whatever, that's fine. But then in these episodes, he's less and less forgiving. And what we get to is what the part in Rogue One, and I have a strong suspicion the character we see in Rogue One that I'm about to refer to, we're going to see in the next 3 episodes, is there's the guy at the start of Rogue One who's like, I can't come with you, I've broken my arm. Just after telling Andor they know about the Death Star. And he goes, I can't climb. And Andor's like, and he has to shoot him. And he has to shoot his rebel friend because he's like, I can't risk you being taken and the Imperials finding out we know about the Death Star. I can't. And I think these things are, it's like, that guy, if he's an ISB plant, that's enough for me. He's gone. That's it. There's no, doesn't matter if he's changed his mind, doesn't matter if he's turncoat, he's gone. No chances. Yeah. And I think that's what war turns people into, isn't it? It's like it makes you make those quick decisions, and he becomes more like Luthen. Luthen would have shot the ISB agent without a doubt. I mean, Luthen even tries to kill Andor in the first season. Yeah. Like he's like, about Aldani, we needed to kill him, and they just couldn't. And then Andor, approaches Luthen and says, right, you can either kill me or you can let me work for you. And so Luthen's like, all right, I'll take you on. Obviously, it was a good decision. So I really like that, although it is, it's brutal. I mean, one thing I thought you were going to say is what we don't see in Star Wars as much, especially from the good guys, is we see it a lot in the animated stuff, and it does irritate me. It happens to Rebels all the time. I've got a lightsaber. What I'm going to do is I'm going to slice your gun and kick you, and then you're going to be knocked out. In Fallen Order and in some of the other stuff, they get a proper stab. You see that, obviously Acolyte does that a lot, but like, you don't really see the goodies overtly kill the baddies too much. You see some stormtroopers get killed, but a lot of times blaster bolt gets deflected back at you, or things like that, or stuff. But this is like, no, this is a guy walking towards you in the middle of the street, and you've just shot him cold blood.
Broad daylight.
And it's like, we don't see that from the goodies in air quotes much, and I like that.
Absolutely. And again, this is this is like Downing Street, isn't it, in Coruscant? This is basically you shot someone outside down
the House of Parliament is what the Senate building is, basically.
Basically. So you've done that, and it is quite stark, and it is quite kind of like oof. And I think maybe as well, because we've had such an effective episode in the previous episode. Again, I know it doesn't seem like they've done much in the episode to escape, but I think you kind of almost need a breather from the last episode. You can't have this big bombastic like action scene with stuff. It does have to be more subtle. It has to be a bit more like sneaky. And I think we do probably need that. But I think it was just that line from Kleya, which is like, oh, you are, it just threw me off a bit. Because I before then I thought, oh yeah, I didn't think of it being like, oh, it's, it didn't seem quite difficult or anything. Because I did feel it was difficult in a different way, but when she made that line, I just felt you're undermining it. You're undermining. It almost
feels like another character would have said that line.
Yeah, and that's why it threw me. I think is because if Bix had said that, I would have been fine with it. I'd be like, if Bix was there and she went, "Oh, you are," and said to Andor, "You're tired. You need rest." I get it, because again, she's a partner and she's loving and nurturing. But yeah, it just seemed really out of character for me. Again, I don't know if we'll see more of her in the final act, the final arc, and see maybe if she has softened even more. Maybe she softens too much and gets herself killed. Maybe that's
I think her and Luthen are almost certainly going to die. I wouldn't be surprised if she dies by like blowing. She has a contingency, and so Imperials invade her and Luthen's shop. She blows it up and kills all the Imperials and herself to save information going out, and that's in like episode 1 or 2. And then Luthen dies. I think he's going to be like the big death in the final episode. I think that's my estimation. But when I was talking to Jack about Kleya, because again, Kleya's one of his favorite characters, I said, what would be so good, obviously if she survived, that'd be cool, get to see more of her, but I doubt it. And he said about a comparison that he is kind of reminiscent of like Padme's handmaidens, and he'd love to see if there's like a connection maybe to her and one of the handmaidens, because they do survive. There's several handmaidens that are in the 2020 Vader comics, which are set between Empire Strikes Back and Return of the Jedi, where Dorme and a couple of others, Sabe, one of them is the one that Keira Knightley played as the plant in Phantom Menace. They actually interact with Vader. They're the handmaidens, Amidalans, they call themselves, I think, and they do genuinely fight against like Vader and the Empire. There's a whole plot line with it. It's quite interesting actually, but I would like that. But I would love like a book or a comic series about Kleya's life up to that point. I think a book would work quite well, like a book about her up to those points, and even maybe from, if she does die in the next arc, from the turning or just before the Empire took over, probably her as a young girl, and then her all the way up through these Andor things, her perspective on certain events, and then her eventual death. I would love a book of that.
Yeah. Again, I think any of these characters, I'd love to see more. I'd like to see how Luthen's got to where he is, and what's his kind of.
Where was he before the Empire? Because he's older, so he was probably an adult before the turn of the Empire. So what was he doing?
Yeah, what's his secret origin story? Yeah, and the thing is, it's the strength of these characters that makes me interested in that. And then I know Andy complains about like, oh, they've got to fill in the plot holes of the comic, and and all this sort of stuff, but I don't mind it. I will, I'll entertain it. I'll give it a go. If it's shit, it's shit. And again, I'm not, I know you're the Star Wars apologist, and again, there's stuff I like about all the different iterations and comics and different kind of stories, video games, what have you. But yeah, like I'm not going to be like, oh, I'm now going to love this film just because a comic was okay or anything. It won't change my perspective entirely. Like if I read a comic prequel to Rise of Skywalker, it's not going to change my mind. I'm still going to be like, it's still not great. I didn't hate it, but it's still not great. Again, it's not. I don't have an issue with that. Again, if they feel like unnecessary, maybe then maybe I'd have an issue. Again, it depends on the writing and whether I expose myself to it. And I always send him like, oh no, there's another comic, Andy, coming out, Star Wars comic. It's like, oh, fucking Star Wars comics, but that's me just messing with him, and obviously I like to kind of tease him and stuff with stuff like that, and get him kind of ranting and raving, because that's what he does best. But yeah, like I could easily read a comic about Luthen or Kleya or both of them, in a comic together. I'd like that. There's a lot of other characters I could see or be interested in. What happens in between these years? What's happening? That's still stories you could tell with Andor or with these characters, before we get to the inevitable conclusion, and whether they stay alive, whether they live, we'll certainly find out.
Like an anthology comic of like the stories of Andor, and almost just like 5 comics, and each one bases on a specific character, and we just kind of get to see what happens with each of them. What happens with Kleya between these episodes. How did Luthen get to where he is?
I'd love to know what happened between Syril and the front, like what happened between them, that now from one episode they're like best friends, and then all of a sudden they're like, I'm gonna fucking kill you, you did this to us, you ruined us, and what information did he give, how did it work out, like that feels like a hole that needs plugging for me.
And all the missing years almost.
Yeah, or something. Yeah, the lost years, and all the lost years, or something like that. Like, they did it in the Spider-Man clone saga when Ben Reilly becomes Spider-Man. They had a mini series called Spider-Man: The Lost Years, because he's disappeared for several years. So yeah, I'd be up for that. But if we never get that, that's fine as well. I just think this is seriously good television with very, 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 very minor flaws for me.
Yeah, I agree. So we've got the last sort of part, because we will wrap up. You know, people are messaging saying they want us to be talking for 3 hours. I think that's pushing it a bit, but we're nearing the 2 hour mark, and we've still got a couple of other little things to mention quick. There is Bix, which I'll get into momentarily, but I'll do a couple of lore dumps while we're here. So,
do it.
Speaking about Force Healers, we spoke about Imperial Security Droids, aka KX series security droids, which were first in Rogue One. So, two little things. So on Yavin, you've got Draven, who we mentioned earlier. So his name is Davitz Draven. He is a general in Rogue One. He is first in Rogue One, and he's also in some 2015 Star Wars comics as well. He's in issues 45, 50, then I think 51, 53, 54. He unfortunately dies. There's a comic series, there's a comic graphic novel collection called Hope Dies. It's the 9th volume of the ongoing 2015 Star Wars comics. So 2015 Star Wars main run, there's 75 comics of them. I often say to people that I don't recommend them, just because there's 75 of them. Probably 30 of them are worth watching. There's one called the Ashes of Jeddah, which I think is one of the coolest Star Wars arcs there is. It's when Luke, Leia and co go to Jeddah after Rogue One. It's really cool, really different. And the whole planet's like ripped open, and Luke like goes into like this rift, and there's loads of these I can't remember the name, but they're like a dark side force cult that worship death, and they go there and they stare into the cracked open planet and have dark side force visions, and Luke goes there and has one, and it's really interesting. It's quite nuts. I love it. I'd say anyone who's got Marvel Unlimited, just check that out. It's Ashes of Jeddah, volume 6, I think it is. It's around I think it's like issues 30 or so.
I'm sold on it.
Yeah, you don't need to read anything else. It's really, really good. But this one, so Hope Dies is the name of it, volume 9. So yeah, it's the 50th issue special, which is like a bumper. I think it's 40 or 50 pages. And Hope Dies is all about how was the Rebel Alliance in A New Hope quite big, and then how is it at the start of Empire they're quite small. And the reason is it's a loose plot that kind of goes throughout the main line of Star Wars comics, but it all culminates in Hope Dies, which is where the majority of the Rebel forces gets wiped out, including General Draven, I think Dodana as well, because Dodana gets mentioned in this. I'm fairly sure he does. But yeah, Draven, he's interesting. Funny enough, Draven gets killed by Vader. He gets his neck snapped. Yeah, full on, like brutal. He I think he, if memory serves, he literally says, "I'm not scared of you" or something, and Vader just kills him, which is quite a Vader thing to do. Draven does also appear in Rebel Rising.
You will be.
Draven also appears in Rebel Rising, which is like it's like the lost years of Jyn Erso, between her being a kid at the start of Rogue One and her kind of being found by the rebellion in Rogue One when she's being raised by Saw Gerrera and other stuff. That's the Rebel Rising book. The other thing I want to mention is U-Wings. So the U-Wing is the ship that Andor and Wilman fly in this, but you first saw it in Rogue One. They're a very cool ship, they're out like a U, and the S-foils come out into like a straight line almost. Introduced in Rogue One, their full name is UT-60D, U-Wing Starfighter / support craft. They're also in Star Wars Rebels, they're in some comics, and they actually, 1 or 2 appears in The Rise of Skywalker at the end at the Battle of Exegol, so that's a nice bit of fun trivia there. And then a bit of recommended reading for people. Leia, Princess of Alderaan, is a book by Claudia Gray, and the majority of it is it's when Leia is like 16 years old. It's a year or two before this one, if memory serves. It's about 3 years before the Battle of Yavin, and these arc takes place 2 years. So it's a year or two ago, and it's essentially Leia finding out that Bail Organa and Mon Mothma are part of the rebellion. So it's before this, and it's her kind of wrestling with that idea of trying to work out how to kind of deal with that. So, and what she thinks about it, that she's kind of mad about it at first, how her mind obviously eventually changes, and then she pops up in Star Wars Rebels as more of a rebel, but still very much under the guise of being a senator. But Leia, Princess of Alderaan, it was a book that I only read because I was interviewing Claudia Gray a few years ago. It was the last book of hers in Star Wars to read. It wasn't that fast because I'm like, I don't need a prequel to Leia in A New Hope. It was brilliant. Really, really good. Amelin Holdo's in it. She's great, a young one. And it's also about Leia learning to be a senator, but also trying to be a princess as well at the same time, and that kind of thing. So it's a fun book. It's good fun there. Yeah, three BBY. So these episodes 2 BBY. So yeah, 1 year ago. So those are recommended reading. And before we get to our last thoughts on this and Bix, because we won't save it to the end, quick plugs. So obviously, Spider and the Secret Wars is the name of your podcast.
Yes.
You are doing the X-Men stuff, the Age of Apocalypse, but also you and I have both been on the 20th Century Geek very recently to talk about Superman, because you've got there's the Superman James Gunn film coming out, and 20th Century Geek, Scott Weatherly, is doing a full-on retrospective. So he's going through all of the Superman movies. I went on for Superman 1 and 2 because I'd seen Superman 78 in pieces maybe, but I didn't know it that well. Superman 2 I hadn't seen, and so watching those was quite interesting. I've now since watched Superman 3 and Superman 4, and also I am going to be appearing on a pod next week talking about the documentary Super/Man about Chris Reeve. There was a point in it I had to really hold back the tears and not cry. 2 more seconds on screen of what I saw, I would have cried. So it's a really good documentary. It only came out, I think, late last year. Really, really, really good. So I'll be talking about that, along with Math, who's my Clone Wars Conversation co-host, in detail there. Spider-Dan was on for Superman 4. Talk about that, which episode only just came out. So I'm still listening to that, which is good fun. And I'm going to continue to listen to watch the Superman movies, because on Patreon, I released my full 30-minute thoughts on Superman 3. I'm going to record my full thoughts on Superman 4 as well very soon. So good fun there. But Dan, as well as that, tell us a bit about the X-Men stuff, and then also our little teaser for Forbidden Worlds.
Yes. So I'm doing a collaboration with Comics in Motion. So it's me, Dave, and Max, and we're going through the Age of Apocalypse, which is this big 90s colossal kind of reality-altering, timey-wimey, alternate timeline thing where Xavier dies, and it's what if Xavier never formed the X-Men, and it starts with Apocalypse rising early and taking over North America, basically. So it affects the entire X-Men universe, and they're trying to basically erase this timeline and their own lives and their own babies, in some cases, to restore what was before, because it was slightly better than having a despotic leader that's about to be nuked by the rest of Europe. Who knows? That might even happen in the real world. Topical. But yeah, so it's really fun. Really, we're diving in deep. We're doing it by miniseries, which you can read out of order. We've just done Gambit and the Externals, which was a heist in outer space. So very interesting, that one. And the next one is Astonishing X-Men, which is Rogue's X-Men, and she'll be taking on Holocaust, who is the son of Apocalypse, who's trying to call all the humans. So yeah, big event. We're going to do it all. There's going to be 12 podcasts in total. I've worked it out that will be the way. And then so we're getting there. But we've the miniseries that are being voted for, we're going through. We're already like 1/4 of the way through. It's 12 podcasts. We've done 3, so it's coming to an end quicker than I thought, or feels like it's coming to an end quicker than I thought. But yes, we've got that, and just regular podcasts I'm doing at the moment. I'm hopefully doing Memoirs of an Invisible Man, John Carpenter's film, and his not so happy experience with working with Chevy Chase. But me and Andy will get into that, hopefully, when he finds time. He's a bit busy. I'm a bit busy this month. Speaking of being busy, you have mentioned we will both be on the press team for Forbidden Worlds Film Festival in Bristol at the Bristol Aquarium at the end of the month, from the 28th to the 1st of June. Big deal, because they've got Gail Ann Hurd there, the producer and collaborator with James Cameron and his former wife. You're a massive fan of Aliens. They are showing Aliens. Gail Ann Hurd is going to be there. Again, I don't know if we're going to get a chance to interview her or not, but we're just going to do what we can, where we can find it and enjoy. And we're going to do some preview podcasts. I believe you're going to do Young Sherlock Holmes, because I've already covered it. Mm-hmm. And I'm going to do speaking of comic book sequels to films, I'm going to do a comic book sequel to Waterworld, because at Forbidden Worlds, they are going to be showing the Ulysses cut of Waterworld, which is the fan cut they did include in the Arrow Blu-ray video release, because it takes kind of some of the TV footage and mixes it and reorders it in a way that apparently makes it better or more palatable. It was one of the biggest box office bombs of all time. And I don't think you've seen it, Mike.
I've ashamedly barely seen any of the films at Forbidden World Film Festival. So I've seen Aliens, I've seen Young Sherlock Holmes now, I haven't seen Tremors, ashamedly. I've not seen Waterworld, Battle Beyond the Stars. I haven't seen Orca, Blood Tide.
I am looking forward to your feelings on Battle Beyond the Stars, the Roger Corman Star Wars ripoff. I cannot wait to watch that.
Yeah, I think VHS tackled it somewhat.
Yeah,
VHS Strikes Back. I think they. So I peripherally know about it.
I did a comic book sequel to it as well. Oh no, sorry, comic book prequel to it, which was fucking terrible. So you don't need to read that. But the film is fine. Think Seven Samurai, but in space.
Yep.
That's it. That's all you need to know. But I'm very much looking forward to hearing what you have to say about it and your experience with that. But yeah, it's very ocean themed. So there's a lot of water based stuff going on. There's a Below haunted submarine film. There's Blood Tide, which I watched the other day and did a review on Letterboxd. So and I've tagged Forbidden World in there and shared it and stuff. So
Alligator's another one. It's quite ocean themed this year because it's the 50th anniversary or 60th of.
They've organised it in such a way where Alligator is the final film, and that is a banger to go out on a festival with. The audience is gonna utterly enjoy that. That'll be an amazing one.
Because like 4 films a day, I think. From I think is it Thursday or Friday?
Yes, that's correct. So
I think Thursday is Aliens, isn't it? And
so they've got Wednesday's the documentary. Thursday is Aliens with Galen Hurd because they're doing the director's cut, so it's the longer version, the better version.
100%.
And then Friday's a few more films, and then Saturday it's full day, and then Sunday's a full day.
Yeah, and there's a short film showcase as well, which we're keen to watch.
Yes. Yeah,
because I'm going in. You've seen pretty much all the films I think that they're showing, if not all, almost.
Yeah,
all. And I've not seen any of them but Aliens, obviously. So we're going to be doing a lot of pods if we get to interview some of the people there because of the cast of Young Sherlock Holmes. That'd be great. We're part of the press team. Got a fancy new camera.
Absolutely. I've got some mics. Yeah.
So we'll be hopefully interviewing some people, but if not, we are just going to be chatting ourselves, recording ourselves. And I imagine, probably recording a few. I'm going to aim to record like a couple of pods a day, but like quite short ones and just sprinkle them across mine and Spider Dan's feeds. But all these different films supporting, a film festival, which we're very privileged to not only attend, but be on the press team for in Bristol. So very excited about that.
Yeah, it's gonna be amazing. I'm really looking forward to spending some quality time with you, and just going back. The team there are amazing, very supportive, very very nice. Again, I've got I've only got positive things to say about the festival. If you're into genre film, go and check it out. You can buy single screenings. You don't have to go for the full weekend. You don't have to go for a full day. You can buy literally just one film. If one film takes your fancy, go and get the ticket. But again, even the full weekend tickets are actually great. It's a great deal. Like it's the value, absolute value for money. And again, the fact that they've dropped a film from the schedule allows you to give a bit of leeway to go to the toilet, to speak to people there, to interview people, which we can do. And we'll probably speak to some of the volunteers there as well. Like
I'm going to buy some DVDs as well. Some things that you can't normally get, some hard ones to get.
And I'm hoping again that Jim will paint it will be there again as well, because he's done the poster again this year, I believe. So he'll probably be there.
I've got one of his T-shirts I wore to the Comic Con I was at because he did a Red Dwarf Star Wars inspired poster, and I wore that, so I'll be taking that with me. And there's still also a film that's to be confirmed.
You're right.
So I'm very excited what that could be. Anything I'm excited about. But yeah, we're going to try. I think there's one film that you aren't as fussed there, which we won't name, but I think we'll see the vibe. But if not, we'll have a break and go have something to eat or something. Yeah, but otherwise, we're going to be trying to watch, if not every film, almost every film. So if you can't make it for any reason, check out the posters and stuff and subscribe to both Spider and the Secret Wars and also Genuine Chit-Chat, because that's where it's going to be. And we're going to be releasing tons of content, not only over that weekend, but from the sort of the week sort of coming up. And also, again, a couple of preview pods as well.
Yeah, so previews as well, and so whatever we can do, we'll figure it out. But yeah, I'm just looking forward to the event itself, and again, just having a good old time with yourself.
Yeah, I've never been to a film festival. I'm very excited.
Oh, mate, you'll love it. Again, the people there are lovely. The people who organise it know what they're doing. They have good taste in films. The way they organise and set everything up.
When I told my brother the lineup, he was like, "God," he was like, "That film's a banger, and that one's amazing." And that's a great one. So I'm very excited.
Even the stuff I haven't seen, I'm like, that is on my list. That is on my list. That is on my list.
They're all on my list.
Exactly. There we go. But no, check them out. They've got a website. You can buy tickets there directly. They've got a YouTube channel where you can see all the previous introductions. So you've got introductions by John Carpenter, James Cameron, you name it.
Jackson, I think.
Peter Jackson, well. Yeah. I saw King Kong, the original King Kong, for the first time on that massive IMAX screen, which was an incredible experience.
The Bristol mega screen in the the aquarium.
That's correct. Again, they've got a documentary coming out, which is on the first day on the Wednesday, about the use of it and the kind of rediscovery of it and everything. But yeah, couldn't recommend them enough. Lovely people, an amazing event. They do have a horror event in usually in Halloween as well, called the Big Scream, I want to say, which is a smaller event and is more horror themed. But like I've said before, this is like my mecca each year. So if I can go and I can afford to go and I can manage it and organize it, I'll try and go every year. Whether I'm on the press team or not. First year I was on the press team, more than happy to pay that money again, see all this stuff. So yeah, check it out and just keep your eyes peeled for all the stuff me and Mike are doing.
Good stuff. So that's a nice little tease. So we'll come into the final parts of Andor then. So I've given lots of lore dumps. So on the final part, which is probably the final time we're going to see Bix. So all I'll say here, because I want to give it to you to give your thoughts, but with Bix Caleen, I think that she's been incredible in the whole show, especially, there's the sexual assault scene, which was very difficult to watch, but I think it's very well done. I already read the quote on the pod when we did it about how Tony Gilroy, but also how the actress kind of felt about doing it. I think it was very important, very well done. But my hope is the final scene we see in Andor. I said this, I think, last week and the week before. My hope, I'm trying to put it out into the universe, is the final scene we see in Andor is Bix hearing about either the Scarif or the Death Star blowing up and her thinking of Andor and showing that she's okay. That's what I would love, that little bit of hope at the end of Andor, but I'm not holding my breath. What did you think about her goodbye and that? Did you see it coming? Megan said she saw it coming as soon as they had that conversation. She was just listening. Did you see that? And what did you think about the farewell?
I knew there was something she wasn't telling him. There was definitely something that, because they talked about, when they mentioned Gold Team, I thought, oh, she's Gold Team. She's going to be delivering Mon Mothma because that's already been established that that's happening. So maybe while he's been away, she's agreed to another mission or to continue the rebellion. And I get why he's, again, I absolutely understand that speech he gives. I think is brilliant about him coasting on his luck and it's running out and he's done so much because he has. Like I genuinely, what he's saying, I'm like. I'm bought into it. I get it. However, what Bix has been through and the fact in the previous episode, and again, they use that clip at the start when they introduced this episode. They're like, if we're going to be in the rebellion, I need to know we're going to win. We need to win. And again, it's lovely that he wants to go off and he's like, oh, we'll live quietly and we'll be out the way and no one will bother us and stuff. And I remember watching. I had a recent breakup during the end of Daredevil season 2. I watched the entire season 2 of Daredevil from Netflix in a night. Wow. Wouldn't recommend. But we get to the end and Daredevil's like, oh, we're going to be together. We're going to finish this fight. We're going to, stop the hand and we're going to go together. And he's like holding him and, he's kind of stroking her face and like, we're going to do it. And it's like, and you're like, you believe him and you want them to, but for a fact they won't. For a fact it's not going to end well. The character is Elektra. Most likely it's not going to end well. the way her stories usually go. So yeah, and it reminded me of that moment that the character really wants it and is being very open, very honest, and and again is buying into to that. I've been at the end of relationships and I'm still believing that everything's going to be fine, and you're like, oh yeah, it's going to be great, and you're just like, it's not. You're just kidding yourself, and I think. In a way, he's kidding himself that he'll be able to walk away cleanly. There's no way. No. He's too deeply entrenched in the mindset, in the world, in what's occurred, in his trauma. He's never going to be able to fully walk away, even as much as he wants to. It's not possible. And again, that's what Kleya's saying to him. You've just been at the site of the Ghorman Massacre. Surely you'd be galvanized and you'd want to do this. You'd want to be continuing. This is it now. We're in it. This is the end game of this rebellion. And yeah, so I actually quite like this because usually these decisions in these kind of stories are made by men. They go, I know what we have to do, and I'm going to have to do it, even though it breaks my heart, it breaks your heart. When they're they do the pretend breakup, or I don't like you anymore, I want you to leave, or
they say something really horrible and mean just to make them want to break up with them.
I never trusted you. I knew you slept with this person. I've never really loved you. That's the classic one. I've never loved you, and I've been pretending this whole time. Why would you do that? it's usually like the male character or the female character, and again, that's usually the trope is they go, "Oh, I never loved you," and they have an argument and they separate. And this may have played out again in my own personal life. Maybe they're saying these horrible things and like, "Get lost! I can't do it. I can't bear," all this. But I liked it because we could have seen the kind of unfortunate trope of her getting maybe injured, or again, she's been through so much. She's been through so much trauma.
I didn't want her to die. Yeah,
I didn't want her to die. I didn't want her to be fridged in some form. I don't think. And I like that she makes the decision for both of them.
She takes control.
Yeah, she goes. This rebellion needs to work, and you are needed. I spoke to the Force lady. She says you're important, so you are important, and I'm important. And if we can't be together, it's like when they say Luthen says about the two ladies. Again, he says they're more effective apart.
Vel and Cinta, yeah.
That was it, Vel and Cinta, yeah. I thought I was doing well with the Star Wars names today, and I'm really not.
There are a lot, especially because every character in the series is basically in these episodes as well.
Yeah, all of them are in it. So the fact that that's she's learned that from Luthen, she knows that from Luthen because Luthen came to kind of recruit her to do something, and then he saw that she was on drugs and said, "Nah, I'm not going to do." Even Luthen has gone, "Okay, I do have some human qualities and sensitivity. I know that much." But yeah, I like that, and again, I know it's a cliche, but him running to the transport, I liked.
I loved that bit. I was so sad.
Again, it's absolutely a cliche of the romantic comedy trope of running through the airport. I get it. But I think in this, I liked the fact that it was a video, and I liked the fact that she's delivering it, and she says, I can't, usually it's a fucking letter and you hear the voiceover. And again, that's a cliche, but I like that it was a video and she's going, "I'm recording this. You're asleep now. And I can't do this. I need to let you know." And again, she takes this character has agency. Like, it's not like she's just letting shit happen to her and just being like, "I've got to now deal with it." She's going, "No, we need to do this. I need to do this. I need to be this. And you need to be that. And we can't do that together." Because again, in the previous arc, she's like, "You're always trying to protect me. You can't protect me in this." And that's why she makes that decision, because he is still trying to do that. He'll never get away from that. And that's why he's running to the transport.
Because he's holding himself back, isn't he? That's the problem.
Yeah.
The whole time. And because it's like the actress, she's Adria Arjona, she's absolutely fantastic. And like in the whole series, she's been absolutely standout of her emotional, the emotions she can show, top tier. But especially in that scene with the video recording and her, the tear and that sort of stuff. I'm like, oh, that is... You really feel it, it doesn't, pretty much all of Andor, none of it really feels like, oh, these are actors. They feel like actual characters and people. Even Forrest Whitaker as Saw Gerrera, I love it. Yeah. I know Forrest Whitaker is probably one of the greatest actors of our generation. He's phenomenal in everything. But I see him and you think, oh, that's Forrest Whitaker. When I see him as Saw Gerrera, I think Saw Gerrera. Yeah. And if that can happen with so many other actors who, I know many of the other actors have been in other things, obviously, especially Stellan Skarsgård and stuff, but I don't see the actor. I see the character. And that can be something that can really pull you out of stuff. But in this, all of them, they are it's so lived in. It's so real. It's got so much weight to it. And I love the whole scene.
There is nothing easy about what she's doing as an actor. Oh, she is literally... she's directly at the camera, she's directly at the camera. It's just her face, and there's nowhere to hide. If you're doing poor acting, you're going to be found out. There is no way you can get away with being a shit actor at that close and that intense and looking directly into the camera as well. There's no way you can get away with that unless you are an expert at your craft, and she is. She was in Morbius. We'll forgive her for that.
I haven't seen Morbius yet. I haven't seen Venom 3. I haven't seen Morbius. I haven't seen Craven. I've not. Yeah. I want to see them at some point just to say I've seen them.
Sure.
And I'm a Venom apologist, but
yeah, even I was like, we talked about Carnage, Carnage Unleashed or whatever the sequel was called, and even I was like, it's not great, but Venom 3 is. Oof. Yeah, good luck with that one. Even Max, who is the apologist for most Marvel films, and would be like, and he's been well into watching Craven and Madam Web and all these.
Oh, I haven't seen Madam Web either. No.
Madam Web, I have seen, but I think if you watch it going in knowing it's a bad film, or watch it with friends and have a drink, I think you can have a lot of fun with it. if you're going in expecting the next Marvel movie, you'll be supremely disappointed. But yeah. Anyway,
Andor's not that.
going back to actually good. Like talking about Quest for Peace, I'm talking about the Sony movies again. Let's talk about some good shit. So yeah, no, I think that was superb. And again, him cross-cutting to him experiencing the video and going back to that. And again, I quite like the idea that this character goes away and his replacement is this killer droid. Like immediately, like you see that sometimes in certain storytelling where, you know, a cast member has to leave, but then they bring another character in to kind of fill the void, so to speak. Yeah, this loving, nurturing, wonderful, lovely person that he had and who's been through so much and has done so much for her and with her. His replacement is in everything he stood against, basically everything he is designed to fight and destroy. He now has to befriend, you know, to move forward. Which again, very interesting. Again, says a lot about the greys of this story and this storytelling.
Yeah, no, 100%. It's interesting. We'll see where the next series the next collection goes. It's going to be an interesting finale. I worry it's not going to be as hard hitting or as weighted as this episode and the prior one, because a lot of there's going to be quite a lot of characters that do die, but there's also quite a few characters that we know don't, and it's kind of getting them to where they need to be at the start of Rogue One, but we'll see about that. It was also fun at the end seeing Melshi pop up, which is when Vel was collecting the weapons, and he was like, Spy Blaster. That
I did recognize him.
He's in Narkina 5. He's the one who escapes with Andor.
Yes,
and they climb up the side of the rocks and stuff. And he's also in Rogue One. He goes to Scarif with.
I remember us talking about that, or you mentioned it on that, because I was like, they were like, this guy's in Rogue One. I was like, oh yeah, of course. And they did hang on him, and they made it a point. So I was like, we've definitely seen him before. There's no way they would just go hello unless there was some kind of connection there. So yeah, I did. I was like, is it that guy? And yeah, absolutely, you're right. So yeah, makes a lot of sense.
So I think we've pretty much tackled everything. We've spoken about Bix. I mentioned Melshi, K2SO. I think we've pretty much touched absolutely everything, and we've done all of our plugs. So, you know, the fans wanted us to talk for 3 hours. We're at about 2 hours 20. So we've done pretty well.
Yeah,
for longer than I think these episodes put together were.
And again, we spoke probably for an hour or 2 hours before.
We did. I had to have a toilet break before we pressed record because I was like, I don't think I can last how long we're going to talk and things. So it's been a great podcast. You know, thank you so much, Dan, as always, for coming on. It's a delight chatting with you. And obviously, also one thing I forgot to plug, which is Disney Discussions.
Yes, of course.
We always collaborate on Disney Discussions with Rhea and with Megan. So please check that out. The recent episode wasn't Spider and the Secret Wars. It was all about Lilo and Stitch, the first and second movie. I don't know if you want to say the last bits before you hang up that.
Yeah. We had a special guest, Natalie, who kind of inspired the idea of our Disney discussions. You call it Episode 0, the feminist 4-hour discussion. If you want a longer podcast than this, go and listen to that instead. All about feminist Disney villains and some trauma dumping from me, I think, as well. So yeah, a lot of that in there. So yeah, it was I called it the Mount Everest of all of our podcasts, because people were like, I remember you were like, I've listened to it all, and like Dave went, I listened to it, I did it, and it's like you climbed the
it took days of like solid listening. It's not one you can listen one day.
The thing is, that was plus 4 hours, and I knocked it down to a little under 4 hours. So I spent a good time editing it, probably longer than most people spent listening, or try to even listen.
We want the Secret Balls cut then. That's what we're saying. We want the uncut 4.5-hour version with all the trauma dumping.
No,
none of it cut out.
It's a lot of Andy interrupting. There was a lot of dogs barking and people, you know, doing stuff in the street that we had to stop and start, and tea breaks and what have you. But yeah, no, you don't. Honestly, I don't think I even have that. Well, I probably do.
I'm glad you guys had breaks though, because we did have breaks. 4-hour podcast with no break is
that was the problem. That was the problem though, is because I was like, I'll keep note of all the times, and then when we have a break, I'll be like, I can't remember how much we've recorded. So I was like, I think it's this much, but we'll see. And then when I got home, I was like, fuck. Shit. But I liked it all, so I kept most of it. So yeah, I didn't want to like just dump it all. I was like, no, I'm keeping this. Is it makes sense. I can't cut too much. Much like Superman 4, there's far too much cut out of that. I didn't want Superman Quest for Peace syndrome in the podcast. So yeah,
that's fair.
Yeah. But no,
Well,
it was nice to have her on, and it made sense for her to be our first guest, I think, on Disney Discussions.
Yeah, first guest and first Disney Discussion of 2025. But we have got plans eventually. We're all super busy. So it's like, that was a real fun special. And then we'll try and do some more this year.
I know what Megan's got planned, and I've got the antithesis for what Megan's got planned.
Yeah, you and Megan are on the opposite sides. You go for the really weird, crazy stuff. She goes for the stuff that's like, High School Musical and a lot of
She goes for the peak
Disney
cringe
stuff. She goes for peak Disney Channel stuff. You go for the fringe stuff that people don't realize is Disney. And me and Rhea are kind of in the middle going, should we watch something we actually like? Maybe.
maybe I'll tell you what I'm planning after we finish recording, because I think it is something you'd enjoy. But I know Megan will despise it.
Well, it's a good thing because she's choosing something you're going to hate as well. So that's going to be a lot of fun. And for a hint there, people go back and listen to the High School Musical episode, because I've never seen Dan as angry on a podcast as that. The end of that, that's one of the snips, the clips I used, a little snippet of your ranting.
Very popular.
At the end of High School Musical 3. It's one of my most watched clips, and I love it. Every time it comes up, I watch it again because it just cracks me up so much.
And if you want a Megan rant, you can watch our podcast on Visitor Q that was on both mine and Mike's channel.
Yeah, she's not forgiven me about that. You can watch that on Genuine Chit-Chat's YouTube. She has not forgiven me about that. She still occasionally brings it up. So she's still angry about that. So we'll see. But friends, thank you so much for tuning in. As always, I appreciate you on this massive Andor discussion. Next week, we will be with Math as the finale of Andor. And then there'll be a little break for me. And I've got some more exciting Star Wars content coming your way. Some original stuff, some redone Clone Wars conversations. It's going to be a lot of good fun. But friends, thank you so much for tuning in. As always, we appreciate you. And of course, may the Force be with you.